You're watching Live Impact News right here on WCNC Plus. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm Megan Bragg. We are going to get to some breaking news right now. We are learning that crews are responding to a 1,500-gallon chemical spill at Silfab Solar in Fort Mill. Okay, so I'm going to read this off because there's a lot of information coming in right now. So York County officials confirmed that 1,500 gallons of potassium hydroxide was spilled at the Silfab Solar manufacturing plant this morning. We do have a reporter on the way. Autumn is on the way to look into this more for us. So we are hoping to get a live report from her when she does end up in Fort Mill. But this is right off of US 21, the bypass there. So it was around 9:45 a.m. that York County management did go to that area. So here's the confusing part that we've been seeing. So they said 1,500 gallons had spilled, but Silfab Solar did release a statement saying they accidentally released no more than 300 gallons of water diluted to a level of 0.3 potassium hydroxide. 0.03. Right. Yes. So, that's a lot different.
Those are two completely different numbers.
Yes.
And we're transparent here.
Yes.
We want to just tell you
that we are working to learn on what the exact number is right now. I'm sure that they're trying to figure that out as well. But we obviously don't want to give you just, Silfab's statement.
Sure.
Right? We want to be transparent and give you what first responders are saying. A note did go out to Flint Hill Elementary parents because it's not too far from there. It's about less than a mile, actually. So the Fort Mill School District did send a message to parents about that. But right now we are working to learn more. They're saying that it's no harm to the public,
right?
Which is good news. But like I said, we do have our reporter Autumn Bracey out to Fort Mill right now.
This is in the Gold Hill Road area, if anybody's familiar. It's kind of one of the big E roads down there.
Yep.
So it's kind of like in the heart of everything. There's a lot around it. So I know people were really concerned. On my neighbor's app, I still get my notifications from Fort Mill of people talking about it. So we know a lot of people are
And we've been looking
interested
into this too. Potassium hydroxide can be used in house soap, household
cream.
items. Yeah. So just depending on the amount, it can be dangerous. But we are saying, Silfab Solar saying 0.03. So we are on our way working to learn more and to give you more once we are there. So keep it right here on WCNC Plus. We'll give you that as soon as we have Autumn down there. But we're going to transition it right now to the weather. It has been just gloomy, gloomy, gloomy. Right?
Gloomy now, but we've got 80s in the future cast as we go into the end of the work week. So you know what? The cool weather.
It's going to be great.
We've got something to look forward to at least.
Sweet Becca, I forgot to ask, which weather are you on?
I'm on weather 1.
Yes.
Yes.
Behind the scenes there.
We've got a couple of sprinkles out there, kind of just making it for a dreary Tuesday for us. The rainfall totals aren't really going to add to much, maybe a trace to a few hundredths of an inch, but what it's doing is more of an inconvenience or nuisance for your Tuesday, especially if you do have any outdoor activities. So this is the live view over towards Monroe, Union County, courtesy of Mr. Sparky. You'll actually notice if you open up the Doppler radar, even though we've got some sprinkles and some drizzle out there, it's not necessarily picking up on that. That's because the radar beam actually overshoots it. So just don't be surprised if you step outdoors and you don't necessarily see rain on your app, because it is drizzling outside. Temperatures in the 40s for the most part. We will steadily warm up into the 50s as we go within the next couple of hours, but 47 degrees. It is overcast. 44 over towards Salisbury and Statesville, and even 53 up towards the mountains as they are seeing a little bit more sunshine and warmer temperatures than the metro. As we go with the next couple of hours, around 3 o'clock, temperatures will be peaking right around the middle 50s for the afternoon high. But any evening plans, I do think we will start to see at least some clearing with the clouds going into tonight. Now, temperatures into tomorrow morning will only be dropping into the middle 40s. But as we look ahead, we've got a big warming trend, not only with our afternoon highs, but our morning temperatures as well. No freezing mornings, in fact, within the next 7 to even 10 days in this extended forecast. So very mild mornings, 50s and 60s as we end out the work week and go into this weekend. Today, we're stuck in the 50s. Tomorrow, we have got a big jump in temperatures. We're talking about a 20-degree temperature difference for that afternoon high. That's going to be as we get a big southerly wind. We'll also see, of course, an increase in sunshine. Not going to be totally sunny. We'll have a mix of sunshine and clouds, but we'll be entering the 80s by the time we get into Thursday and Friday. We're likely going to break a record high temperature. So our forecasted high temperature, 82, that record holds is 80 degrees. That was only, around 4 years ago, 2022. We'll also be close to records going into your Saturday and Sunday, but likely just a few degrees shy of actually beating them. I also do want to mention the sun angle for this time of year in March is the same as September. So spring sunburns are very real, kind of creep up on you on this time of the year, especially as we go into Thursday and Friday. We will see our first likely high index value of a 6, which may not sound like much, but definitely don't skip out on the sunscreen because those spring sunburns will creep up on you. We do start to get a little bit humid towards this weekend. Nothing off the charts, but it might just be slightly uncomfortable as we go towards the weekend as well. Of course, looking and feeling like spring for us. Very slight rain chances will be introduced towards the weekend. It's going to be a little bit more isolated. In fact, it looks like a much better chance for a big soaker as we go towards the next upcoming work week. We will be close to the 90s next work week. I don't think we'll actually hit it, but we will be fairly close. So that brings us to one of our stats of the day. Our earliest 90-degree day was March 17th. That was back in 1945. But our average first 90-degree day is May 20th. That brings us to the Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast. We have got a warm spring-like end to this work week. This first real weekend of March looks actually fantastic. Very isolated rain chances, upper 70s, close to the lower 80s, especially as we approach your Sunday. Mix of sunshine and clouds. As we go towards the 10-day, this is when we start to get into the middle 80s over towards next Tuesday and Wednesday. So no 90-degree day in sight, but it will start to feel like that very soon. We are also, of course, springing forward this weekend. It's controversial because we lose an hour of sleep, and if you have worked the morning show, that's especially rough.
But you get more sunshine.
Yes. So right
Positive
now,
girl.
our sunset is 6:21, but as we look ahead to Sunday evening, that sunset is going to be close to around 7:25.
Wow,
And then
like
we'll
it.
start to get those 8 p.m. sunsets from April all the way through August.
Wow.
Love it.
So it's
I
nice.
do love it too.
One story that I'm focusing on for this evening, it's also severe weather preparedness week in
Yep.
North Carolina. So when we see these kind of later sunsets, it typically means when we get severe weather here, typically it's during the afternoon and early evening hours. So more people are out and about because we've got the later sunsets. They're more vulnerable to severe weather. You also have visibility changes. If you're out in the evening, you can kind of see a storm coming through, whether if the sunset was setting earlier. So I'll have that story coming up at 4:45.
Fascinating.
Yes.
I'm just thinking about the sleep I'm losing, though, honestly.
I know.
I'm
see,
never prepared for it.
I'll be on vacation, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, nice.
It's a way to rub it
She's
in,
like,
Becca.
fine.
Poor
Y'all
Chris.
have to deal with it.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
Meteorologist Chris Mulcahy will be filling in for me this weekend,
Oh,
so I'm
nice.
gonna tell him sorry.
Sorry.
Fans.
But I am loving those weather, or those temperatures.
80
I should
degrees?
say.
70s and 80s, yeah.
Love
it's gonna
it.
be
Love
feeling
it.
really comfortable.
Love to see it.
Awesome. Okay, Becca, thank you so much.
Of course.
We're going to take a quick break right here on Live Impact News, but keep it right here on WCNC Plus. Welcome back to Live Impact News right here on WCNC Plus. It is Tuesday, and you know what? It is primary day, okay? So if you haven't already, you still have time to get out to those polls. Polls opened at 6:30 a.m. this morning, and they will close at 7:30. So if you are in line at 7:30, you got time. That is the cutoff. Just make sure you're in line by 7:30. And you also have to go to your precinct polling place. Yeah, before you could go pretty much anywhere because it's early voting, but today you have to go to that precinct. We of course have all of that information on our website, WCNC.com, and of course on our mobile app. So just a little update on that. And of course, we will continue to keep you covered throughout the day. This is our Super Bowl. We get so hype about elections. You should see our plan. It's actually insane.
Very long.
A very long plan.
Minute by minute.
Minute by minute.
So y'all should be tuning in. Why would you turn us off?
I mean, started reading that email and then stopped because first of all, I was not in the email. Second of all, it's a long email. You know when you have an email and it's just not. Anyways, okay, so we are going to actually go over to Washington, D.C. because Secretary of DHS, Kristi Noem, is testifying in front of the Senate right now, the Senate's Judiciary Committee. So let's take a listen into that.
Policies and what was going on, right?
That is correct.
And they declared an emergency and they demanded more money from the administration because they couldn't keep pace with the emergency that the Democratic President Biden and his radical handlers created.
Correct.
And at the same time as Florida Attorney General, I got calls from around my state that drug traffickers that were prosecuted here that were not American citizens, but they were incarcerated in federal prisons. So I want to underscore this. The only reason they're in America is because they were drug traffickers. They were not American citizens. We brought them here. We prosecuted them here. And they were serving an incarcerative portion of their sentence. And after that, instead of deporting them back to their country after they did that, they were pushing them back into the communities where they were prosecuted, even though they weren't citizens. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And did you know that during that time period, when I pressed for information on who they were and where they were going and where they were being pushed, do you know that they stymied our efforts and would not give us that information? Would you say that what you are faced with as a secretary is unlike any successor has had to deal with in terms of cleaning up a dangerous, threatening situation created by their predecessor?
Yes, absolutely. And it's not just the illegal immigration situation. It's the crime. It's the amount of individuals in this country that wish to do us harm that they let in, the amount of known and suspected terrorists that we know are here that we need to find and remove before they perpetuate harm on this country, to the neglect at FEMA, the politicization of FEMA, how they only did disaster response to individuals who aligned with the Democratic Party and their ideals and ignored other families who were suffering and had lost everything. What we saw as far as not investing in Secret Service and TSA and intelligence and analysis. And then CISA was manipulated and censoring people's First Amendment rights. It was deciding what was misinformation and disinformation and trying to manipulate election outcomes, and that has been fixed. So under the 23 agencies.
How important is it? In Florida, I was so proud of my state. When we had an administration that came in and said, we're going to put the American interest safety first again. And it was so clear who supports that at the State of the Union.
Yep.
Every one of the counties, 67 counties in my state signed up and said, we will help you. We will enter in agreements with you. We will help you track these people down that should not be here, that have committed crimes. We will work with you. I, as a senator, said, let's get you money to help reimburse them for those efforts. Does that make a difference? And did you see a difference in the way you engaged with states and the stability and safety of all involved when you didn't have people working with you hand in hand?
Oh, absolutely. And we're thrilled. We have over 1,400 law enforcement agreements through the 287G program at the state and local level that have partnered with us to do operations to address public safety threats and to get them out of communities. And those individuals that are local law enforcement are critical partners in the success and safety of the American people.
And I would just ask for you to keep engaging with those sheriffs of the local communities, asking how they think best to safely do these operations. I think
just spent yesterday with all of our sheriffs, with all 4 associations and hundreds of sheriffs, thanking them for the work they do.
Thank you for being here.
Senator Schiff. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you to the families who are here who have lost loved ones, both who lost loved ones to violence perpetrated by immigrants, but also to those who have been seriously injured by ICE agents, and to those watching who have had family members killed by ICE agents. Madam Secretary, I want to ask you about one of the first claims you made in the immediate aftermath of the shooting of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. You accused them both, I think, within hours of engaging in domestic terrorism. You've testified earlier that you did so based on preliminary field reports. Who told you that these two victims were engaged in domestic terrorism? Where did you get that information from?
I've said before, and will repeat again for you, Senator, that those reports were coming from on-the-ground agents that were there. It was a chaotic scene.
So you spoke to agents on the ground who told you they were domestic terrorism?
Yes.
Domestic terrorists?
My team was working with me, talking to those agents on the ground to relay as much information as possible that we could to the American people.
Your team told you that people in Minneapolis said they were domestic terrorists. Did they tell you whether they had any basis for that claim within either minutes or hours of the shooting of Alex Preddy and Renee Good?
Sir, if you look back at the day of January 24th, there was a press conference earlier in the day, and then I held one hours later.
So I'm asking
and we
you,
were also
I'm
talking,
asking you, did you determine whether there was any basis for the sensational claim, a claim that proved to be utterly false, that these two victims were engaged in domestic terrorism?
there is an investigation ongoing. The FBI is leading that. There's also internal investigations that are ongoing.
I'm asking you
We'll continue to bring the facts forward.
Excuse me, Madam Secretary. I'm asking about your statements in the immediate aftermath of these shootings. Your statements based on completely unvetted information that if it was even provided to you proved to be utterly false, that you were content to tell the whole country. Do you have any concern about misleading the whole country? Don't you think in the immediate aftermath of a shooting that you should provide only vetted information to the public? How do you imagine you're going to gain the trust of the American people if you're pushing out false information about the shooting of American citizens?
I work every day to get factual information to the American
you
people.
Didn't on that day. You didn't on the day that Alex Preddy was shot, and you certainly didn't on the day Renee Good was shot. You weren't getting out good information. You were making a spurious claim that has caused endless injury to the victims' families on the basis of God knows what. And then your agency doesn't allow local investigators. They essentially push away independent investigators. How is the public to have any confidence in investigations done of excessive use by ICE agents if, number one, you make immediate and false statements about the victims, and number two, you don't let any independent agency conduct an investigation? How is the public supposed to believe anything your agency says or finds?
These investigations are being done in the same way that they always are.
No,
and the FBI is leading. There are internal investigations as well. In these situations, ICE has an internal investigation.
Excuse me.
Well, would you like to hear about the investigations that are ongoing?
You're not allowing state and local investigators to participate.
That is not my decision.
And furthermore,
the Department of Justice and the FBI decides how investigations
they're not being conducted in the way investigations are always done. Are you telling me that in the case of Miramar Martinez, that having an agent involved in shooting her, drive a vehicle that was used to ram into her vehicle, drive that vehicle, that evidence away from the scene and 1,000 miles to Maine, you're telling me that's the way investigations are always done? That you let an agent involved in an officer-involved shooting drive a key piece of evidence 1,000 miles away? Is that how you conduct investigations at DHS?
I'm not conducting these investigations into these. The Department of Justice with the FBI is conducting those investigations, and CBP.
For how investigations are conducted when ICE agents, when agents under your control are engaged in the use of force?
The investigations into our officers have
I know
not changed
there's a
under
great
my
desire
leadership or the president's
to point the
leadership than what
finger.
they
Oh,
were under the previous
that's being done
administration.
by Pam Bondi's Justice Department. I'm not responsible for that
Our internal
malpractice,
investigations
or
are following the same policies
that's the orders
that they
of
always
Stephen
have.
Miller, so I'm not responsible
No.
for that either. But you are responsible. You are responsible. You could insist on independent investigations, but you're not. You could wait until there's good information after a shooting before you go to the press and the public and mislead them. Let me ask you about a different subject, and that is the waste of resources at your agency, the continued allegations of favoritism and contracting, and let me in particular focus on the $220 million ad campaign, many of which feature you very prominently. An ad campaign that is more expensive than the whole budget for One Fight After Another or any Hollywood blockbuster film. So let me ask you, you said that the president approved this vast expenditure on a media campaign that largely profiles you. How do you know that? Did he approve it to you personally?
This media campaign was critical in telling the world
No,
and
I'm
this
asking about the
country
president's
that
approval.
we are enforcing the laws in the
I-
United States of
you
America,
testified
that if you're in
earlier in
your
answer
country
to-
illegally,
You testified
then you
earlier in
should
answer to
leave
Senator Kennedy's question. The
now,
president
or if you want the
approved
chance to come back to the United
So my
States
question is,
someday in
how
the
do you
future.
know-
If you don't, you will be
How do you
detained
know?
and
Excuse
will be
me?
removed and never get the
Madam
chance to come
Secretary,
back.
how
It's
do you
been
know that
extremely
the
effective
president-
in sending the
Excuse me, Madam
message.
Secretary, how do you know the president approved of this $220 million contract?
We had conversations and worked with OMB
So you
to
had
make sure that
conversations
the
directly
funding
with
was
the
there.
president? Excuse me, I just want to clarify. So you had conversations directly with the president where he approved this $220 million ad campaign that significantly features you? Is that
Sir,
correct?
this campaign was talking about making sure that people knew that our laws were being enforced.
Again, I want to make sure that
We
we're not
continue to go through the
misunderstanding each
process.
other.
It was a competitive
president approved-
bid campaign.
excuse
I
me.
had nothing of choosing.
Excuse me, so the president approved this expenditure?
Sir, I've been explaining this to you, how it, when it was a competitive process,
Well,
the
okay,
career
you say it was
officials at the
competitive process.
Department of
I guess
Homeland Security
you don't want to
chose
confirm
the
the
best.
president's role in this, and I can understand why. But you say it was a competitive process, and yet this contract went to a company that didn't exist 2 weeks before they got the contract.
Sir, I can't speak
And-
to that. I don't
No,
know the name of that company. I'm
You're
sure
saying you can't speak to it, but let me ask you this. Are you saying it's just a coincidence? It's just a happy circumstance? It's just a
saying that-
a fortuitous event that 143 million of that went to a subcontractor that you worked with extensively as governor in South Dakota or during your campaign, that is just coincidental?
The same process was followed for this
So it's-
media
so it-
contract than any
so-
other
so
media
just a-
contract that's
just-
happened.
just a
At
coincidence
the
then.
Department of Homeland
And-
Security, I had
and-
nothing to do and no political
You had nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. So
choosing of who the
just a
contractors.
coincidence-
And we don't
Excuse
have a
me.
legal process for
Just a
weighing in on
coincidence
subcontractors.
also-
It doesn't exist.
Excuse me, just a coincidence also then that this $143
To ask
million.
questions, you should want
Excuse me,
the answers.
I'm trying to ask a question.
You're trying to
So
say that this
just-
was a political
just-
decision, and it
just
absolutely was
another-
not.
I'm just asking you. So it's just a coincidence that a $143 million subcontract went to the husband of your press person, also someone that Corey Lewandowski, one of your special government employees, worked with extensively. So that was all a coincidence, right? Because you had no knowledge of this, no
Media
involvement.
company that
and none
gets
of the
the
people around you
contract,
had any involvement.
the ability to
So
choose the
taxpayers should just
subcontractors.
assume
We don't
this is
weigh
a
in
coincidence.
on who subcontractors are. There's not a legal process for us to determine what subcontractors are a part of a contract
So can
that
you-
goes out
can
for a
you
competitive
state-
bid.
can you state
And
for the
only career
record-
employees at
excuse me,
DHS were in on the
Can you
choosing of
state
those
for the
media
record
contracts.
then that neither you nor Mr. Lewandowski nor your press secretary married to the husband of the person who got this $143 million
We were not
contract,
a part of the
Can you state for the
decision-making.
record that none of you that I've just described had any role, played any part, made any communication with any government agency that was involved in deciding who would get that contract?
To the best of my knowledge, none of us were involved in deciding who got those contracts for the media
Undeciding, but
campaign.
were any of you involved in advocating, communicating, or expressing a
Not to
preference
my knowledge,
in any
Senator,
way
not to
with
my
the government?
knowledge,
Excuse
Senator.
me. Let me just finish the question. Were any of you involved in any way in communicating, expressing a preference in any form, manner, verbal, written, with any government agency that was involved in the contracting
The
process?
same process was followed for that contract that is
You're
for
not
all
answering
media
my question.
contracts that have gone forward. To my knowledge,
or no?
there was no involvement whatsoever of anybody that is on the political appointee side of this position and that media contract.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Noem, good to see you again.
Good to see you, too.
If I could just start with a Missouri question. Last time you and I visited over in the Homeland Security Committee was shortly following a massive series of tornadoes in the state of Missouri. And you and I talked about that. You pledged your full support and FEMA support in cleaning up the devastation which has happened. I thank you for that. I just want to follow up on one challenge that has come in the wake of the devastation. In the partnership with the state of Missouri, the city of St. Louis has stood up a debris removal project. Local officials currently estimate that about 10,000 homes, these were very significant tornadoes, about 10,000 homes in the area will require some assistance, debris removal assistance, by the time that efforts are completed. FEMA has very helpfully helped to fund this debris removal. Thank you for that. My question for you is, some of the conditions that have been placed on the funds by FEMA mean that only 100 or 200 homes out of those 10,000 can actually get access to FEMA debris removal funds. Here's my question for you. Would you be willing to work with me and the state of Missouri to see if we can remove some of this red tape so that more folks, more residents in the city, we're talking about thousands and thousands of people now, can get access to the debris removal and cleanup and get back in their homes if they need to, have their homes appropriately remedied so that folks can get a roof over their head?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Thank you again for all of your help on this. It's really been tremendous. I've heard a lot of complaining. You've heard a lot of complaining today. Let's just take a second to talk about the unqualified success that you have enjoyed since coming to office and been a big part of. Since the president has taken office, daily migrant encounters are down 92% from their peak under Joe Biden. Daily border apprehensions are down 95%. In fact, if I've got my numbers right, you correct me if I'm wrong, last year Southwest border apprehensions came in at the lowest annual total since 1970. So in 55 years, for 7 consecutive months, Border Patrol has released 0 illegal aliens.
All right, you're watching Live Impact News right here on WCNC Plus. We are going to take a quick break right now, but when we come back, we are going to look at some of the highlights from this hearing. So stick with us because it did get pretty dramatic. So we're going to show you that video coming up in about 2 minutes. Welcome back to Live Impact News right here on WCNC Plus. It is 1 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Megan Bragg. All right, we're going to go back to Washington, D.C., but this is something that was pre-recorded because North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis went after Kristi Noem in this judiciary hearing, kind of asking her to resign. He was criticizing her leadership. So it got very dramatic, very spicy. So let's take a listen into that.
Chairman, Secretary Noem, thank you for being here. I'm really glad that a lot of my Republican colleagues talked about the disaster that Biden and Mayorkas, your predecessor, created. It was absurd. You heard the things from Senator Brett, people that came over here who themselves were traumatized by the very people who then come to this country and traumatize American citizens. You heard Senator Schmidt saying the same thing. A lot of us are very frustrated with the disaster that President Biden left behind and a failed DHS. It's why I'm angry and it's why I've been critical of you, Secretary Noem, because we're missing an opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the reasons President Trump won a year and a half ago is because people were sick and tired of a Democratic administration's open border policy and allowing millions of people to come to this country, 1.7 million called gotaways. We don't even know where they are, but we know when you pay a premium to a cartel to get them into this country, they're bad people. Now, why have I been critical of Secretary Noem? Because I don't think we're focusing on, we have limited resources. ICE can't be everywhere at once. There's very few people in Capitol Hill that support law enforcement more than me, including the sworn ICE officers. In fact, I've just been told, fortunately, in about a week and a half, we're going to get a plaque on the wall over the Capitol, thanking the Capitol police officers and all the agencies that responded on January 6th. All those thugs have actually been pardoned, and yet we haven't thanked the Capitol police officers for their work here. So when I say I'm unapologetically pro-law enforcement, you can count in every single sworn officer in Homeland Security. So why am I disappointed with Secretary Noem? Because we're not going after enough people who did this damage at the expense of running numbers that Stephen Miller wants out of the White House. We just want numbers. We want 1,000 a day, 6,000 a day, 9,000 a day because numbers matter, right? No, they don't matter. Quality matters, not quantity, quality. And what we've seen is a disaster. Under your leadership, Ms. Noem, a disaster. What we've seen is innocent people getting detained that turn out are American citizens. I could talk about the culture that's been created here with Stephen Miller aiding and abetting. I heard first reports that he was the one that said it was a domestic terrorist situation where 2 people lost their lives in Minneapolis. I've heard that report. Maybe you can refute it. I don't know that we'll have time for you to respond because I'm giving you a performance evaluation here. I'm not looking for a response. And I'm saying, Ms. Noem, that time after time after time I've been disappointed. But before I get back to looking at the vicious people that did this damage to these families, I want to talk a minute about FEMA. You have a policy right now that anything over $100,000 has to go through your desk for approval. I asked my staff, because I'm a management consultant, I don't try to do cheap shots in here, but the facts do not lie. This is your administration for FEMA response. This is President Trump's first administration. Which one would you like to have? If you're a state that has a $60 billion disaster, your biggest disaster in South Dakota that I can tell that when you were an elected official was about $500 million. So 1/100th of this single storm where thousands of people are hurting in North Carolina and you're just barely catching up. This is what competent FEMA leadership looks like. This is what incompetent FEMA leadership looks like. And people are hurting in Western North Carolina from the most significant storm they've ever experienced. This is what we need more of. I'm convinced you can't do it. If you're requesting a review of $100,000 and up, then it begs the question, why? Why would you be involved in that? Why would that be a policy? And in a minute, I'll ask about some people that are involved, some special government employees. Why are they involved in it? Thank you.
Senator,
No.
That
You can finish
that $100,000
after my 10
only
minutes
had
are
to
done,
do.
and I will hold the clock until I finish.
Okay.
The bottom line is I've done the analysis, and you can say whatever you want to. I've worked with the Democrat governor. I've worked with the Republican governor. I've worked with fiscal research. We have people contacting my office now to get the information to better understand the failure of this department. You failed at FEMA, and in fact, if I get to it, actually, why don't I cover this right now? The Homeland Security Act of 2002 expressly prohibits the Secretary of Homeland Security from restricting or diverting FEMA resources from the agency's mission. Based on your disaster response, the chart that I just showed you, I have reason to believe that you're violating the law, either knowingly or unknowingly. So I'll be asking and getting a submission to the record, submitting a question for the record, what the total amount of FEMA reimbursements are currently being held by DHS, awaiting for final approval. Held by DHS, awaiting for final approval for an agency that you should not be obstructing the disbursement on. I'm going to give you time to answer to it under penalty of perjury so that we can get it right. Now, going back to Minneapolis, why can't we just say we made a mistake? I will ask you one question, if you can just give me a quick response. Who does Tom Homan work for? You or the president?
The president.
Okay. Why is that? Because I believe the president recognized that you weren't getting it done in Minneapolis, and you're putting us further away from pointing to this. We're beginning to get the American people to think that deporting people is wrong. It's the exact opposite. The way you're going about deporting them is wrong. The fact that you can't admit to a mistake, which looks like under investigation, is going to prove that Ms. Good and Mr. Petty probably should not have been shot in the face and in the back. Law enforcement needs to learn from that. You don't protect them by not looking after the facts. Not only should the FBI be investigating it, but every single law enforcement agency in that jurisdiction should be invited to it, so our law enforcement officers do not have this pall cast upon them. One of the reasons why ICE officers are having threats, and damn the people that threaten ICE officers, because so many of them are doing a good job, is because you've cast a pall on them by acting like we should investigate things differently. Officer-involved shootings have a formula that we should go through every time. And we're not going through that formula. As a matter of fact, in Ms. Good's case, I think that they were even saying that maybe there wasn't even a need to do it in the DOJ. I hope that that's changed. But I'm telling you, it was a civil rights review. I saw your frown. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But originally, Blanche said there wouldn't be an investigation. Folks, law enforcement, we've got to have their back. We've got to make it clear when they make a mistake, then they get corrected for it. But you don't walk away from it, and you've done it too many times. Now, Secretary, I read your book last week. And honestly, some of the parts of it impressed me, but some of it distresses me. And I'll give you a good example of one that does. The passage where you talk about killing a dog that was 14 months old. I train dogs, all right? And you are a farmer. You should know better. You should know that if you're going out to a hunting lodge and you're putting pheasants out and you're putting dogs out, you don't take a puppy out there. A 14-month-old dog is basically a teenager in dog years. You decided to kill that dog because you had not invested the appropriate time in training, and then you have the audacity to go into a book and say it's a leadership lesson about tough choices. It's in your book. We could play it if we had time. At that same lunch hour, you killed a goat. And you killed the goat because you said it was behaving badly. You are a farmer. You don't castrate a goat. They behave badly. You should have probably done that before. But my point is, those are bad decisions made in the heat of the moment, not unlike what happened up in Minneapolis. I expect we're an exceptional nation. And one of the reasons we're exceptional is we expect exceptional leadership. And you've demonstrated anything but that in the time that I've seen you responding to the emergency in North Carolina and across the Southeast, and acknowledging when mistakes are made, and speaking too soon for the expedient of social media or whatever it is. I'll leave you with this, Ms. Nome. I'm expecting answers to Charlotte's Web. I requested it a month ago. That was one of the investigations in Charlotte, 20 minutes from where I live. All I asked for, if it had to be anonymized, was information so that I could determine if your hit rate is right. I want to find more of those people, and I want to detain fewer of the others. And Mr. Chair, in my remaining time, I have a lot to go. But I want to submit this letter from the Office of Inspector General that cites 10 different instances under Ms. Noem's leadership where they've been misled and not allowed to pursue investigations that they think are critically important. Does anybody have any idea how bad it has to be for the OIG in this agency to come out and do this publicly? That is stonewalling, that's a failure of leadership, and that is why I've called for your resignation. And if I don't get an answer to these questions, I don't want an applause. Please don't do that for me. If I don't get an answer to these questions, if I don't get an answer that you've had a month to respond to, and the remaining ones, as of today, I'll be informing leadership that I'm putting a hold on any en bloc nominations until I get a response. And in 2 weeks, if I don't get a response, I'm going to deny quorum and markup in as many committees as I can until I get a response.
All right, we do have some breaking news for you right now. Former NASCAR driver Chase Pistone has died at the age of 42. His brother did send out something on social saying that my young brother and best friend is gone. I'm brokenhearted, and I don't know if I'll ever get over this. I miss you, Chase, already. So there's not been a confirmation on how he has passed, but we do know that he has passed. We also know, that he is a native to Charlotte. He's been in NASCAR and was in the top 10 in 2006. He finished the top 10 at the Iowa Speedway. And he's a grandson of racing legend Tiger. If you could know him by Pistone. He began learning the sport at the age of 6. Carlene, you know so much about NASCAR. Did you follow him at all?
I know the name of Tiger Pistone.
Because he was big, right?
Yes, he was a big deal.
Yeah.
But Chase was in the trucks and was in Xfinity, and he was in the ARCA series, so he was kind of coming up. But it's just a tragic day. It's been a hard couple of months for the sport.
Oh, absolutely. NASCAR can just not get a break, I feel like.
Right.
A lot of sad things coming out of NASCAR recently. So the Charlotte native, 42 years old, very young, passing away. So very sad. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family. We're going to take a quick break right here on Live Impact News, but keep it right here on WCNC Plus. Welcome back to Live Impact News right here on WCNC Plus. Happy Tuesday. It is election day today. So, a lot of folks are going to be going out and casting their vote. This is the primary election. So this is basically who will go to that November election. We've got a few big races that we are following right here in Mecklenburg County. That, of course, is the Mecklenburg County Sheriff. That is up for the primaries right now, 3 Democrats running. And we also have an NC Senate spot that we are also eyeing, also going to be very, very big. So we are continuing to keep you updated on those races. Of course, when those polls close, they close at 7:30. Now you have to be in line by 7:30 if you want to vote. And I've been saying this all day, but please, please, please go to your correct precinct because that is where you can vote right there. I am actually running a story later today at 5:30, I believe, about how you are supposed to have an acceptable photo ID. Now, this is anything from a passport to, real ID, your regular ID, a student ID, something like that. You need an ID. Now, under state law, though, every registered voter is still allowed to vote, even if they don't have one, but it's very different. So you have to fill out a provisionary ballot, so it doesn't count until they confirm your identity. So I'm kind of taking you through the process and what you need to know. I know that there is a lot of skepticism when it comes to elections and election fraud in general. So we're kind of taking you through the process on what people need to actually prove they are who they are. So let's take a look. Our sources are Mecklenburg County Election Commissioner Michael Dickerson, the North Carolina State Board of Election, and the state's official reasonable impediment form. First, to vote at all, you must be registered. If you are not registered by the deadline, you cannot cast a ballot on Election Day. Same-day registration is only available during the early voting period. On the voter registration form, applicants must confirm they are a U.S. citizen, at least 18 years old, and provide either the last 4 digits of their social security number or a driver's license number. Now, if you are properly registered but forget your ID at the polls, you can cast a provisional ballot and complete an ID exception form. That form requires you to list your name and explain why you do not have an ID.
You'll check that I don't have an ID because my work schedule doesn't let me go get one, or whatever it is that is the reason that you don't have. Don't leave it blank. Complete it so I can then examine it and have my board accept that.
Acceptable reasons include work conflicts, lack of transportation, a lost or stolen ID, disability or illness, or family responsibilities. There are also exceptions for voters with a religious objection to being photographed or for those impacted by a declared natural disaster within 100 days of Election Day. Election officials review the form and verify the voter's information before determining whether the provisional ballot will count. With your Verify, I'm Megan Bragg. So a lot of steps there. Like I said, when you do register to vote, you do have to fill out your driver's license ID or your social security. If you don't have either of those, then there is more paperwork for you to do. So they are being, very cautious about, getting your information and making sure you are who you say you are. So that will run at 5:30 tonight, like I said, once again. So if you want to catch it again, you just turn to our newscast on WCNC. You keep it right here and stream it again if you want to. We're going to head back to Washington, D.C., where Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is testifying in front of the Senate. So let's take a listen in.
Reach our communities. Like sentinels standing watch at the walls of a city, the men and women of DHS guard the homeland day and night with extraordinary dedication and professionalism. And yet, over the past 18 days, Democrats have shut down the very department tasked with that mission, weaponizing the budget process to advance political disagreements. The same voices that once called to abolish ICE and defund the police have now left the sentinels unsupported and the watchtower dark. That is what the Democrat shutdown has done. Let's get to the truth. For the American people, this oversight hearing is about three things: where we were, what has been accomplished, and where we need to go next. Let's start with where we were. Secretary Noem, when you walked into DHS, what was the state of operational control at the southern border that you inherited?
There was no operational control. In fact, our Border Patrol agents and federal officers were being forced to help facilitate the invasion of dangerous criminals and aliens into our country.
Were daily encounters at or near historic highs?
Yes, they absolutely were at historic highs. That's the worst we've ever seen.
Between 2021 and 2024, the Biden administration released more than 13 million illegal aliens into this country after encountering them at the southern border. Is that correct?
Yes, that we know of. There could be millions more.
DHS data reflects during this period of mass releases into the interior, crimes committed by foreign nationals included at least 15,000 homicides and more than 20,000 sexual assaults. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I will say, these numbers are not abstractions. And I will say to all the angel families here, thank you for being here. Thank you for holding the photographs of your children, of your spouses, of your parents, of your brothers and sisters who should be with you. Names like Jocelyn Nungary and Laken Riley and Rachel Marin. Jocelyn, just 12 years old, was killed just miles from my house. Raped and murdered by two Venezuelan gang members that the United States government had apprehended and then released. And when they were released, they traveled to Houston, Texas, and they kidnapped a 12-year-old girl and raped and murdered her. In your time at DHS, has anyone in the leadership of the previous administration explained why the hell they let so many violent criminals free in our country?
No, they haven't. In fact, under the Biden administration and Mayorkas's leadership, they closed the victim's office at ICE, the Voices office that would help families that suffered a loss like Jocelyn's family and Laken's family and Rachel's family. They had no resources, no way to track court appearances or to get counseling services, no support whatsoever. They purposely closed that down to punish these families even more.
So it wasn't just murderers and rapists that were being released in this country. The open border under the Democrats also became a pipeline for poison, killing our children. Secretary Noem, when you took office, is it correct that fentanyl was the leading cause of death for Americans between the age of 18 and 45?
That's correct.
Was the volume of fentanyl crossing our southern border at or near record levels?
Yes, it was.
And would you agree that when operational control collapses, cartels exploit that chaos?
They exploit it and they become enriched from it.
So now let's talk about what has been accomplished under President Trump's leadership. Under President Trump's leadership, we have had 0 illegal aliens released for 10 straight months. Is that correct?
That is correct.
In President Trump's first year back in office, how many illegal aliens have left the United States?
2.5 million have left voluntarily, and we have arrested, detained, and removed close to 700,000 now.
And how many known or suspected terrorists have been removed?
We have over 1,500 now today that have been apprehended and are being brought to justice.
In the first 100 days of the second Trump administration, is it correct that daily border encounters decreased by approximately 93%?
Yes, that is correct.
That encounters with gotaways, those who are escaping apprehension, decreased by roughly 95%.
That is correct.
and that illegal crossings overall fell by 99%.
That is correct.
And how much in illegal drugs are we interdicting at the border?
Well, fentanyl has dropped by 56% in just the last year, from 2024, where there was historic highs coming into the country, to historic lows in 2025 under President Trump's leadership.
And I would note that securing the border, targeting narco-terrorists, arresting and prosecuting Nicolas Maduro, all of those have had extraordinary effects. Is it correct that nationwide the murder rate has decreased 20% in the last year?
It has. It's at a historic low. In the last 125 years, we are at the lowest murder rate that our country's experienced.
Is it also correct that the number of drug overdose deaths in America has decreased 20% in the last year?
That is correct.
That literally means there are thousands of Americans who are alive today who would not be alive if President Trump had not been reelected and if Republicans had not won control of Congress. Would you agree with that?
That is correct.
It means, tragically, that had the Democrats' open border policies continued, there would be more and more rows of people, Americans holding pictures of loved ones. We don't know who the loved ones are that weren't murdered this last year. We don't know who the loved ones were that didn't die of fentanyl overdoses, but we know that many more Americans are dead. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I will tell you a particularly infuriating illustration. Several weeks ago, the Houston Chronicle had a front page story, top of the fold. Banner headline, murder rate in Houston, Texas decreases by 18%. And Heidi, my wife, handed me the article because she knew it would piss me off. And she was correct. The article says the murder rate has dropped 18%. Experts are baffled as to why, and we can think of no reason whatsoever why the murder rate would drop. It clearly is not connected to anything that is happening anywhere. Madam Secretary, is it a reasonable inference that arresting and deporting murderers and gangbangers results in fewer murders?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
And that arresting and deporting drug traffickers and stopping narco traffickers results in fewer people dying of drug overdoses?
That's correct.
It is amazing that that cause and effect is so difficult to figure out. Now, where do we go from here? As we sit here today, are there Border Patrol agents right now working with zero pay?
The agents and law enforcement officers are being paid. Some of the support staff and administrative staff is not able to.
Is the shutdown making it harder to sustain the enforcement gains that the American people demanded?
Yes, it is.
You're watching Live Impact News right here on WCNC Plus. We're going to take a 2-minute break, but keep it right here on WCNC Plus. Welcome back. You're watching Live Impact News right here on WCNC Plus. I'm Megan Bragg. Thank you so much for joining us on this election day. Remember to get out and vote if you haven't already. It's the primaries, so lots of big races going on right here in North Carolina. For now, we're going to send it on over to Washington, D.C., where DHS Secretary Kristi Noem is testifying in front of the Senate right there. So we're going to send it on over there and take a listen in.
Violent rioters to continue to resist us and to protest against ICE and the operations that we do to uphold the law.
You know, it wasn't long ago that common sense prevailed, that there was bipartisan agreement, that we agreed we all support the police, we all support law enforcement, we all want to see criminals in jail, we believe murderers should be in jail, we believe rapists should be in jail, we believe child molesters should be in jail, we believe gangbangers should be in jail. Today, tragically, the Democrat Party has decided they are the party of illegal immigrants, they are the party of murderers and rapists and child molesters and gangbangers. And the men and women who are on the wall, the men and women who are defending us from these violent criminals, to the Democrats, they are the enemy. And they engage in rhetoric that is shameful, attacking Border Patrol agents, attacking ICE agents, calling them Nazis, calling them Gestapo, calling them terrorists, cheering on violence against law enforcement. It is utterly shameful. Where I want to speak to the men and women in your department, I want to speak to those Border Patrol agents, those ICE agents, all the men and women who are on that line. I want to say thank you. We appreciate you, your service, your courage. 31 million Texans say thank you. And by the way, the violence is occurring in Democrat states where it's cheered on by Democrat politicians.
It's true.
It is shameful. And Secretary Noem, I want to say thank you for getting up and going in and doing your job every day. Thank you for making my family safer. Thank you for making the families of 31 million Texans safer. Thank you for the honorable work of the Department of Homeland Security, and to everyone there, God bless you, and again to the Angel families, thank you for speaking out and having the courage to say your loved ones mattered. They are not forgotten. I want to apologize on behalf of the federal government. Your loved ones should never have lost their lives. If the federal government had done its damn job, these murderers wouldn't be here. Thank you, Secretary Noem. And with that, I don't have a gavel, but this hearing is adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Kristi Noem, you should be ashamed of your testimony. You lied, and you literally spun everything wrong.
What?
That hearing wrapping up right now. It did start pretty early this morning, around 9:15. So going from 9:15 to 1:30 right now. We are going to take a quick break right here on WCNC Plus, but keep it right here. We'll be back on Live Impact News. Welcome back to Live Impact News right here on WCNC Plus. So earlier today, President Trump did meet in Washington with the German Chancellor. They met at the White House this morning, and they were talking about several things. But one thing that stood out the most was they were talking about trade and the escalating conflict in the Middle East. And both nations did agree on the need to end the Iranians' regime rule. So, lots going on in the Middle East right now, lots of conflict. So we're going to take a listen into what the president had to say and what they were talking about.
It forced Israel's hand, but Israel was ready and we were ready, and we've had a very, very powerful impact because virtually everything they have has been knocked out now. Their missile count is going way down. Amazingly, they're hitting countries that were, let's call them neutral. Right? They lived together for a long time. I think they were surprised. I was surprised. And now those countries are all fighting against them and fighting strongly against them. Someday they'll write a story and they'll say why they did that. But they hit countries that had nothing to do with what's going on. They were sort of leaving everything alone. All of a sudden they had missiles shot in, which shows you the level of evil that we're dealing with. They'll hit people that were actually at least somewhat friendly, and they had no problems with it. Also hitting only civilian places, hotels and apartment buildings, and we're hitting them where it is much more appropriate. We're hitting them very hard. And the big scale hitting goes now. They no longer have air protection. They no longer have any detection facilities at all left. And so they're going to be in for a lot of hurt. These are bad people. These are people that killed. I guess it's 35,000. It's coming out 35,000 over the last 3 weeks. Protesters, 35,000 violently killed. So these are bad people, and the leader of the pack is gone. And as you know, 49 people were taken out in the first hit, and I guess there was another hit today on the new leadership, and it looks like that was pretty substantial also. So they're getting hit very hard, and we'll see what happens. A lot of people are coming forward. A lot of the people you would least suspect want to quit. They want to have immunity. They're asking for immunity, and probably at some point they'll be dropping, as you would say, laying down their guns. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, we're just continuing to go forward. Our military is the #1 in the world by far, and we are. Everything's big in my book. Venezuela was big. This is big. The original hit, Midnight Hammer, was big. Everything you view is big, but it's not considered very big by some standards, by some of our standards. We have a military like no other military that's ever been built.
So
Please.
Mr. President, what's the worst case scenario that you have planned for in Iran?
Well, I don't know if there's a worst case. We have them very much beaten militarily from the military standpoint. They're still lobbing some missiles. At some point, they won't even be able to do that because we're hitting all of their carriers. We're hitting all of their missile stock. They built up all these missiles over the last few years. They had a lot of them. They've shot a lot of them, and we're knocking out a lot. I guess the worst case would be we do this, and then somebody takes over who's as bad as the previous person, right? That could happen. We don't want that to happen. That would probably be the worst. You go through this, and then in 5 years you realize you put somebody in who is no better. So we'd like to see somebody in there that's going to bring it back for the people. And we'll see what happens with the people. They have their chance. And we've said don't do it yet. If you're going to go out and protest, don't do it yet. It's very dangerous out there. A lot of bombs are being dropped. But I would say that would be about the worst.
Do you have someone in mind right now? Because you said all the people you did have in mind have been taken out. What do you think?
Well, most of the people we had in mind are dead. So, we had some in mind from that group that is dead. And now we have another group. They may be dead also, based on reports. So I guess you have a third wave coming in. Pretty soon we're not going to know anybody. But we have, Venezuela was so incredible because we did the attack and we kept government totally intact. And we have Delcy, who's been very good. We have the whole chain of command and barrels of oil already. And a big part of that goes to them, and a big part goes to us. And it's been great. We paid for the war many times over, and we're going to be running the oil. And Venezuela is going to make more money than they ever made, and that's great for the people. The relationship has been great. It's been seamless. Nobody's actually ever seen anything like it. If you look at Iraq, where very stupidly everybody was fired, the generals were fired, the military was fired, the police were fired, the fire departments were fired, and all of the government workers were fired. So after, people would call, they had no idea. And by the way, ISIS was formed. That's where ISIS came from, all of the fired people. We don't believe in that. So we'll see what happens, but first we have to finish off the military.
What do you think about Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi? Is he an option at all in your mind?
I guess he is. Some people like him, and we haven't been thinking about too much about that. It would seem to me that somebody from within maybe would be more appropriate. I've said that. He looks like a very nice person, but it would seem to me that somebody that's there, that's currently popular, if there's such a person. But we have people like that. We have people that were more moderate. These were radical lunatics, and you know what they get? They get nothing. All they do is kill people.
Mr. President, what exactly was the imminent?
You've asked, not your turn. Not your turn, please.
Mr. President, have you been to take the heat off the Europeans to pretend to be healthy? Mark Rutte called on the allies to also help you.
What does that mean?
Well, you have to ask Mark Rutte. He said not as part of NATO, but to be helpful to you in this.
Well, some of the European nations have been helpful and some haven't. And I'm, very surprised. Germany's been great. He's been terrific. Others have been very good, terrific. I think that the head of NATO, Mark, is fantastic. Okay, Mark Rutte. I think he's fantastic. But some of the European, like Spain, has been terrible. In fact, I told Scott to cut off all dealings with Spain. Spain, first of all, it started when every European nation, at my request, paid 5%, which they should be doing. And everybody was enthusiastic about it, Germany, everybody. And Spain didn't do it. And now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases, and that's all right. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it, but we don't have to. But they were unfriendly, and so I told him that we don't want to. Spain has absolutely nothing that we need other than great people. They have great people, but they don't have great leadership. And as you know, they were the only country that in NATO would not agree to go up to 5%. I don't think they would have agreed to go up to anything. They wanted to keep it at 2%, and they don't pay the 2%. So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain.
What is the expectation towards Spain?
And I'm not, by the way, I'm not happy with the UK either. That island that you read about, the lease, okay, he made it for whatever reason, he made a lease of the island. Somebody came and took it away from him. And it's taken 3-4 days for us to work out where we can land there. It would have been much more convenient landing there as opposed to flying many extra hours. So we are very surprised. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
Mr. President, what's your expectation towards Germany? What can Germany do and what should Germany do to help you with this?
Well, I think they're doing it. I mean, they're letting us land in certain areas, and we appreciate it. And they're just making it comfortable. We're not asking them to put boots on the ground or anything. I mean, we're just they're a respected country. I have a very good relationship with the country. We have, in particular, now with this leader, with this new leader. I think he's an excellent leader. I had my differences with Angela. I said, "You're hurting your country with immigration, and you're hurting your country with energy." And we have a man sitting on my right that is, I think, pretty much the opposite of her on energy and the opposite on immigration. And I think he's doing very well.
Mr. President, commercial air travel right now is severely restricted in the Middle East, and thousands of Americans are stranded. Why wasn't there an evacuation plan, and will you send planes to get people out?
Well, because it happened all very quickly. We thought, and I thought maybe more so than most, I could ask Marco, but I thought we were going to have a situation where we were going to be attacked. They were getting ready to attack Israel. They were getting ready to attack others. You're seeing that right now. And a lot of those missiles that are hitting in, those are stationary. Those were aimed there for a long period of time at these other countries. So I think I was right about that. We attacked first. And if we didn't, it could have been, you know, look, we're really decimating them. They're being decimated. And if we didn't, and by the way, we have massive amounts of ammunition. We have the high end. A lot of it was given away stupidly by Biden, very stupidly, for free. And I'm all for Ukraine, but they gave away a lot. As you know, when I give a what with it, but they are giving it, let's say, to Ukraine, and it's okay. But we gave away a lot of high end, but we have plenty. But we have unlimited middle and upper ammunition, which is really what we're using in this war. And we have really an unlimited supply. We also have a lot of the very high end stored in different countries throughout the world. We're literally storing it there, which is actually something that I insisted on in my first term. I rebuilt the military in my first term. The military is great. Unbelievable amount of ammunition, or munitions, as they say, we're giving away to, the Wall Street Journal incorrectly covered the story when they said that it was given away to the Middle East. Not to the Middle East, it was given away to Ukraine. Very little was given to the Middle East. The Middle East would buy a lot, and some of the nations, because they're rich, they have a lot, but it was given away to Ukraine. And it just should have been done. Look, it's a war that should have never happened. If I were president, that war would have never happened. But we have a tremendous amount of munitions, ammunition at the upper level, middle and upper level, all of which is really powerful stuff.
Mr. President, a question to both of you. How worried are you that the rising prices for gas and oil are damaging the American economy and also Mr. Chancellor?
Yeah, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. This is, of course, damaging our economies. This is true for the oil prices, and this is true for the gas prices as well. So that's the reason why we all hope that this war will come to an end as soon as possible, and we are hoping that the Israeli and the American army are doing the right things to bring this to an end and to have really a new government in place who is coming back to peace and freedom.
Yeah. Something had to be done. And it's been 47 years. They've been killing people all over the world for a long time. They were the kings and fathers of the roadside bomb. Soleimani, we killed him last term. If we didn't, I think it might be a different story today. They would have been much stronger and smarter than they are. But they did the roadside bombs. 95% of the people lost their legs, arms, had their face wiped out, just wiped out. I've seen some young people that it's so sad to watch. And that was almost all, 95% comes from Iran and with Soleimani. Soleimani loved his favorite weapon. He loved the roadside bomb. And when you see people walking around with no legs and no arms and a face that's been blown to hell, these people, what they have to go and the way they have to live, this is Iran. When you look at the barracks, the famous barracks, when you look at the hostages, when you look at a lot of hostages, when you look at all of the problems, they were really a purveyor of terror all over the world for many, many years. And it's something that had to be done, and I believe that if we didn't, because I see where Congress, if I didn't do this, guys like Schumer, who are losers, the Democrats, they're losers, that's why they're not here. Guys like Schumer would say, well, you should have done this. In other words, if I did it, it's not good. If I didn't do it, they would have said the opposite, that you should have done this. But most people feel, I'll tell you what, I have never had more compliments on something I did. People felt it's something that had to be done. So if we have a little high oil prices for a little while, but as soon as this ends, those prices are going to drop, I believe, lower than even before.
Mr. President,
ahead, please.
Mr. President.
Yes.
How do you want to solve the conflict on tariffs between the EU and US in this?
Between who?
The conflict on tariffs between EU and US. How do you want to solve it?
And U.S. and who?
European Union. How do you want to solve
Well, we won on tariffs, actually. Somebody said you actually won the case. We won on tariffs. We had a decision that was wrong. It was a very bad decision from certain standpoints. From other standpoints, a very powerful decision because it reaffirmed all the fact that we have all these various forms of tariffs that we felt right, but it totally reaffirmed it. It said you can use all of these tariffs. So we have all these vast menus of tariffs. And tariffs have made our country very rich. We have to charge tariffs to nations who play with their money. You know, they move their money up and down like a yo-yo. We have to take care of nations that have been good to us and fair to us, and we're going to take care of them. Other nations, they haven't, and we haven't let them take advantage of us. But the whole thing with tariffs is we had a decision that, like as an example, we have a license situation, and the license is something that allows us to immediately stop all business with, nobody even knew we had this power. But we do now because of the decision. We have the right to stop all business having to do with a certain country. If a certain country is not treating us well, the president, without going to Congress, has the right to stop. Sort of interesting. I have the right to stop, but under that one law, I didn't have the right to charge them. So I have the right to license by the Supreme Court. And we have the right, as an example, we talked about Spain. I could tomorrow stop, or today, even better, stop everything having to do with Spain. All business having to do with Spain. I have the right to stop it. Embargoes, do anything I want with it. And we may do that with Spain. What do you think?
Well, sir, I think we're going to talk about it with you. I know that you have strong power. The Supreme Court clarified. We know you can use it. And if you need to use it to assure national and economic security, we'll do it.
Scott, do you have an opinion?
Sir, I agree. The Supreme Court reaffirmed your ability to implement an embargo, and as we've talked, from your first term, the Section 301s and the 232s have withheld more than 4,000 lawsuits, and USTR and Commerce are going to begin investigations, and we'll move forward with those.
And we've instituted a 15% tariff on everybody, as you know, and just used, I'll tell you, we had a couple of paragraphs written in that opinion that were really incredible. Justice Kavanaugh wrote a fantastic dissent, but in his dissent he said what we should do, and we knew that too. We just wanted to simplify it, and for some reason, I think, very, very foolishly, the courts decided no, but they said you can do it many other ways, and that's what we're doing. And what we've done is we've gone to a very simple, straight 15% tariff. We've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars in our country because of tariffs. So we've taken in all of this money, hundreds of billions of dollars, and honestly, it's made us very rich as a country. Right? So it's been doing good. When will you have the full plan implemented? We have a 5-month period, up to 5 months, where we can go at 15%. And while we're doing that, as you know, we're doing the various studies and things, and we'll be coming out with tariffs, different tariffs on different countries. Do you want to talk about that first?
Yes, sir. By the time the 5-month period has elapsed, we'll have completed investigations under Section 301, which Secretary Bessent talked about. We know there are countries out there with deals who are very interested in keeping the deals. We need to go through and investigate all these unfair trading practices, the kinds of things you talked about, and make sure that we're protecting U.S. economic security. We know there are countries.
How are we going to treat Germany?
Well,
I think you should hit them very, very hard.
You knew he was right there when you said that, Mr. President. They have expressed an interest. Germany's been quite constructive in wanting to move forward and be helpful. The rest of the EU will talk to them as well. But obviously,
I will say every single country wants to make the deal they already have. In other words, the deal that we have using the other authority, they want to make the same deal. And we'd like to see, actually, we're going to adjust it somewhat upward, actually, but they all want to stay in the deal, and so we'll probably be able to do that pretty easily.
Ukraine, after all, Iran won't be able to deliver drones to Russia anymore. So what?
All right, you were hearing from President Trump right there at the White House. We're going to take a quick break right here on Live Impact News, but keep it with us on WCNC Plus. You're watching Live Impact News right here on WCNC Plus. Time now is 2:02. I'm Megan Bragg. Thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday. We have some exciting guests in our studio right now. God of Carnage is coming out on March 20th. It is a play that actually won a Tony Award in 2009, right? Okay. We have the director, Brian Fontaine here, Amy Thomas, and remind me your name again. Brandon Samuels. See, I knew I got 2 out of 3.
We do the same thing every night at rehearsal.
Perfect. Okay, so, I was reading, because first of all, you see this title, you're like, God of Carnage, what is this? So it's it got me hooked off the bat. Why don't you explain a little bit about what people can expect if they come to see the show?
The title is a little misleading because it's really, really dark, and it sounds like you're going to see this really horrific, evil, show. And it's actually a comedy. It is a 4-person comedy that takes place in real time. There's no intermission. So from the time the lights go up and the show starts,
wow,
the train's left the station, and it's not stopping until we crash into a mountain. Okay. And it's about 4 parents who come together to discuss a playground battle between their 2 11-year-old sons. And throughout the play, you watch these 4 well-meaning adults just regress into childlike behavior on their own. So it's a whole lot of fun watching grown-ups become children right before your eyes.
Okay. And Amy, who do you play?
I play Annette, who is a very buttoned-up mother until she is not.
Oh, we love that, right? I know we know some mothers like that for sure.
Love the drama.
Love the drama. Okay. What made you so interested, in directing this play?
They asked me.
Okay, there you go.
Theater Charlotte this is their 98th season, and this was one of the shows that they selected for the season. And one of the great things about it being a community theater is that not only are the actors from the community, but they also reach out and find different directing talent from show to show from the community to put, those of us who have directing aspirations and skills to use in a way that helps, contribute to the community and the theater scene.
Awesome. Brian, why don't you explain your Brandon? Oh my gosh. I am so sorry, Brandon. I am just messing you up all interview. Brandon, explain your part in all this, what you're doing.
Sure. So I play one of I'm in the opposite couple. Isn't that? I play a character named Michael, and Michael's a little more blue collar, working with his hands, so it kind of comes from a different background, and that slowly unravels too, right? Where do these people come from? How are they handling the situation, which just adds a lot of different flavor in comparison to the opposite couple.
What have you guys learned about yourselves in this play? Is there anything? Yes.
Brandon?
Well,
I know, that's a hard thing.
I think we've all kind of learned, and Brian, you said it earlier, this is a fast-moving train. There's no time to pause and think, and that's kind of the beauty for the audience as well. Once we get going, it's going to be a little bit different every night. It's going to be really exciting to have an audience on the other side. But there's no time to think. There's no point, from this point to that point. It kind of goes in all directions, which is great for us and fun and exciting, but it's going to be great for the audience as well.
Awesome.
And I've learned there is so much good talent in Charlotte. This is actually the first production that I've done in the city, and I've just been blown away by the talent with our director and with the rest of our cast. They're amazing. So anyone that comes out to see the show is going to have a really, really great experience.
Okay, do you love your character, hate your character?
I mean, you have to love your character. You have to, I recognize parts of myself in her, and it's really fun to be able to play those in real time.
Okay.
I would agree, right? We're all human. There's different parts of us that are in these characters, and then the parts that may not typically be us, you get to lean into and have fun and get to do things that you wouldn't normally do as yourself. And I get to do that a lot with Michael. It's a blast.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Sounds like a great, date night, especially for parents to go and see this, really.
No intermission, so it's a short night at the theater, all things considered. It'll be right around 90 minutes, maybe even a little less.
Awesome. We love that. Okay, guys, anything else you want to add about this play?
Come see it.
Yes,
Come to the theater.
absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, and when is it running until?
It runs until April 5th. So 3 weekends starting March 20th.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, everyone go out and see it. God of Carnage. I mean, the name itself is
Right.
just, you got to, right? All right, guys, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much for having us.
All right, we'll be right back on WCNC Plus, but keep it here on Live Impact News.
Thank you. Oh, you're good. You're good.
They do a full season every year, and they're actually getting ready to start their 99th season, which is a big deal. Yeah, it's a big deal. So yeah, I mean, I know that Jeff's got.
You're watching Live Impact News right here on WCNC Plus. You know, we've seen gloomy days, but it's expected to get a lot hotter and a lot sunnier. So here's Majestic Storm with a look at our forecast for this upcoming weekend.
Only one more day of cloudy conditions, cooler temperatures, and even a few stray showers outside. And then by tomorrow, finally, that sunshine returns and temperatures continue to climb back into the 70s. Very dreary outside today, though, as we're heading into the afternoon. Temperatures only really rising into the mid to upper 50s today. By tomorrow, though, I think we could wake up to a little cloud coverage early in the day, mixed in with some fog as well. And then by the afternoon, that sunshine starts to come out. 70s returning for our forecast tomorrow, and then we are talking about a heat wave with multiple days in a row with 80-degree temperatures. Yesterday we topped off at 62 degrees. Today we are forecasting 58. Again, mainly cloudy skies, and could we have a few stray sprinkles out there as we're heading into the afternoon and even early into the evening? I think we could, but honestly, I would say if you're heading out to vote, don't even bother bringing your umbrella. It won't be that big of a deal. Cloudy conditions throughout the rest of our afternoon with daytime highs, again, rising only into the 50s today. Here's our futurecast. Let's get you through the rest of the day today. Let's pause time. Here's about 4 o'clock. Those temperatures into the 50s, still socked in with a whole lot of cloud coverage across the Queen City. Now, we could have a little sunshine breakthrough up in the high country, but look at what happens overnight tonight and into tomorrow. Here's 7 o'clock. Temperatures will mainly be into the 40s. I think we will have a little cloud coverage early in the day, but then there we go. That's what I'm looking forward to. Wednesday afternoon, early evening, I'm talking about 5 o'clock, low 70-degree temperatures. It's going to be not only gorgeous, but also very comfortable to get outside. Maybe go grab dinner outside, go for a late evening walk. You can see by Thursday, 7 o'clock in the morning again, we're basically doing it all over. However, those temperatures will be even warmer. 3-day forecast looks like this. 58 degrees today, cloudy skies. Tomorrow, 77 degrees. Sounds pretty nice. And then it gets even hotter than that. 80 degrees for our March 5th. Each day we will have plenty of sunshine. Rain chances will drop for a few days, but then this upcoming weekend and then into next week, those rain chances slowly start to increase. But truthfully, this is the big weather story, going from 58 degrees today for our high back into the upper 70s and low 80s. Even next week, 85 degrees on Tuesday, 84 on Wednesday, and then we start to see those temperatures drop back down. So while you're outside, whether you're at the golf course playing some pickleball or just going for a long walk in those 80-degree temperatures, that's typically where we would be on May 14th. So it's going to feel much more May-like than it is March-like. Overall, rain chances are low until next week, and we're really going to be watching next week because it seems like there's a potential of not just those above average temperatures, but possibly some storms and rain showers to push through late next week. So make sure you're just staying close to our weather team. Again, the big focus right now will be one more gloomy day today. You can see it here in our Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast. Low temperatures tonight, 47 degrees, so not all that bad waking up tomorrow. 77 though, that is going to feel so nice for our daytime high. Thursday and Friday, low 80-degree temperatures, and then this upcoming weekend, we're going to stay very warm, upper 70s and low 80s there as well. Small rain chances, and don't forget, we're springing forward. We want more daylight. I know you're looking forward to that sunshine and those warm temperatures as well. So I hope you find some time to get out and enjoy it. Hope you have a great day.
Welcome back to Live Impact News right here on WCNC Plus. It is now 2:16. So at 2:30, we're going to bring in Miles Harris. He's been out at the polling places all day, and he's been talking to people kind of about what they're experiencing at the polls right now. So we're going to check in with him at 2:30. So stay tuned for that. But for now, we're going to head back over to Washington, D.C. at the White House, where President Trump is sitting down with the German chancellor, and they are talking about Iran and that conflict going over there. President Trump is now answering questions from the media. So let's take a listen in.
Wrote a fantastic dissent, but in his dissent he said what we should do, and we knew that too. We just wanted to simplify it, and for some reason, I think, very, very foolishly, the courts decided no, but they said you can do it many other ways. And that's what we're doing. And what we've done is we've gone to a very simple, straight 15% tariff. We've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars in our country because of tariffs. So we've taken in all of this money, hundreds of billions of dollars, and honestly, it's made us very rich as a country. Right? So it's been doing good. When will you have the full plan implemented? We have a 5-month period, up to 5 months, where we can go at 15%. And while we're doing that, as you know, we're doing the various studies and things, and we'll be coming out with different tariffs on different countries. You want to talk about that first?
Yes, sir. By the time the 5-month period has elapsed, we'll have completed investigations under Section 301, which Secretary Bessent talked about. We know there are countries out there with deals who are very interested in keeping the deals. We need to go through and investigate all these unfair trading practices, the kinds of things you talked about, and make sure that we're protecting U.S. economic security. We know there are countries.
How are we going to treat Germany?
Well,
I think you should hit them very, very hard.
You knew he was right there when he said that, Mr. President. They have expressed an interest. Germany's been quite constructive in wanting to move forward and be helpful. The rest of you will talk to them as well. But obviously,
I will say every single country wants to make the deal they already have. In other words, a deal that we have using the other authority. They want to make the same deal, and we'd like to see. Actually, we're going to adjust it somewhat upward, actually, but they all want to stay in the deal, and so we'll probably be able to do that pretty easily.
Ukraine, after all, Iran won't be able to deliver drones to Russia anymore. So what does this more mean to Ukraine? And having Chancellor Merz sitting next to you, who would you call if you want to talk to Europe? And Chancellor Merz, you've just been in China. The president.
Who are you? What country are you from?
I'm from Germany.
Okay, I thought so. I could see.
So, Mr. Chancellor, you have been in China, and the president.
She likes you.
In China soon.
I don't know.
Will you be talking about China and will you specific?
We'll be talking about China, yeah.
Sure. And what about you?
I'll be going to China in a little while. Every time you meet, you talk about China. We respect China. I do. We both do, I think. But it's always a topic of conversation. We've had a very good relationship with China. We used to lose a tremendous amount of money with China, and that's no longer the case. We have a very, very good relationship with China, and we have a very good relationship with Germany. All right.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've seen countries around the world, many of whom don't usually work together, working with the United States on Iran, whether it's Saudi Arabia working with the United States, Israel, Qatari shooting down Iranian aircraft, and we've also seen European countries step up. Why are we seeing such unity around the world against Iran?
That's a great point. Look, they're just evil. It's not the politics, it's their whole philosophy, it's their whole, where they come from. It's terrible. Where they killed 35,000, I thought it was 32, now it turns out it's much more than 35,000 people. And in some cases using machine guns with people that have no weapon. They have no weapon, and they're being machine gunned, they're being sniped from buildings, they're hitting the people with snipers right through the eyes. It's just a very evil ideology, and nobody's really seen anything like it. As I said, even the fact that they've attacked all of their neighbors, and the neighbors weren't attacking. They thought they'd maybe sit it out or what. They've hit Qatar, They've hit UAE. They've hit Saudi Arabia. They've hit Oman. They were helping us negotiate. They got hit. Everybody got hit because they're evil and they're bad. It's a bad seed, and somebody had to do it. And it should have been done sometime during a 47-year period because so much death has been caused by them, so much unbelievable death. From Germany, too. Germany's been hit. Everybody's been hit by them. It's an evil ideology. And I've never been, look, I've done a lot of good things. So many people are saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. You see it in the streets of Los Angeles. They have thousands of people. I saw it the other day, pictures of Donald Trump. And I'm looking, I'm on the phone, probably talking to you. And I'm looking, and I see my picture. I say, oh, no, it's another, protest. I see and then I started saying, boy, they were very friendly people. And then I saw a woman hugging the picture of me. I said, what's going on? And it turned out to be these are Iranian people that live in the United States.
So many.
Thousands and thousands. You saw the rallies. And in New York, too, they had a big rally by pictures all over the place. The fact is that people are happy what we did. And you could never, and I've always said it, you could never have had true peace in the Middle East if Iran was allowed to go, even beyond the nuclear. If Iran was allowed to have look at all the missiles they built. A lot have been now taken out by us, and a lot have been expended. But they had thousands of missiles in a fairly short period of time. And I'll go, two things. The attack that we did, known as Midnight Hammer, had we not done that, Iran would have had a very powerful nuclear weapon within 1 month. We did it. It was great timing, but, and you've been able to see that too. The other thing was Barack Hussein Obama made maybe the worst deal I've ever seen because he gave all power in the Middle East to Iran. He went the exact opposite way, and I terminated that. If I didn't terminate that deal, they would be sitting with a massive nuclear weapon 3 years ago, which would have been used already on Israel at least, and other countries also. And we wouldn't be talking about it right now. But if I didn't terminate the deal that Obama made, giving them everything, including...
All right, that's the president speaking right now. That we are going to head over to Capitol Hill, where Republicans are actually speaking ahead of the Iran briefing. So let's take a listen into what they have to say.
The questions about what happens next, and I think, frankly, that's going to be largely up to the Iranian people. But this will eliminate the threat that is posed that could kill countless numbers of Americans. There is no country in the world that has more American blood on its hands than Iran. So I think the president was perfectly within his rights to take the steps that he took. I think it was a necessary step in order to protect American lives.
There are concerns about low munitions piles, sir. There have been those concerns for some time. Are you worried that this is a military readiness issue? Because briefers told Congress that there are a high number of expenditures when it comes to munitions that are happening right now as a result of Iran.
Right, and I think that one of the things that we did last summer, and one of the reasons we thought it was important to provide additional resources to the Defense Department is because for many years during the Biden administrations, defense spending wasn't even keeping up with the rate of inflation. And so we forward funded some things, but obviously we'll be paying attention, and General Kane, we're going to hear from him later today, and that question about munitions I'm sure will be asked. But as I've said earlier, I think it's important to remember too that not only do we have, I think the resources necessary to conduct the operations that are underway right now, but also a lot of our allies in the region also have capabilities that are coming to bear now. And I think the Iranians, by sort of lashing out in every direction,
We are going to continue to watch that as Republicans are speaking ahead of that briefing. But for right now, we're going to turn it back to some local news. Election day is here. It's primary elections. Polls opened at 6:30 this morning. They close at 7:30 tonight. Make sure you are in line by 7:30. Our Miles Harris is live right now, and he's been talking to the people. I mean, he has been out. He's been at these polling
Boots on the
places.
ground.
Boots on the ground. Let's go. Okay, Miles, what have people been saying? Have you seen a lot of people out and about voting today?
First of all, love the introduction, Megan, so thank you very much. No, but seriously, we've talked to a handful of voters, some of them in Ballantyne, some of them who are closer to the Charlotte area. And so first and foremost, I would say that literally every voter that we've got a chance to talk to, they are excited and really emphasizing the point that they have the ability and the freedom to cast that ballot. And so we obviously didn't get a chance to talk specifically into who they were voting for, but that was one of the most important things. A couple of the things and issues that we did lay out and hear from people that were out here casting their ballots, specifically even closer to the Charlotte area, is that we had heard from voters that said that they really wanted to hear and really have the candidates not only say what they were pushing for when it came to kind of getting those votes, but also putting the action, putting those boots onto the ground on the topics that they were talking about as well, whether that would be affordable housing, whether that would be the economy, whether that be for public safety, and even if that even reached into the sheriff's the decision with that as well in that primary. I would say a lot of people were really excited to be able to cast a ballot today. We have not seen as many voters as that we would generally see for a bigger election, like we have seen even in the year before, but we have been able to see people out here exercising their right to vote and really talking about some of those important topics, like I said, like public safety, like affordable housing, and such forth, Megan.
A couple notes, right, Miles? You need your ID.
ID is a really big one, though, as well. And I think it's important to know exactly where you're going as well. There is website information, whether it's on our website or whether it's the Board of Elections, of knowing exactly where you can go to cast your ballot as well. And you have until, 7:30 today to do that. And so, again, we have seen people coming out here, whether it's here close to the Charlotte area or out in Ballantyne, getting out to those ballots and casting those as well, or those polling locations and casting their ballot. But again, overall, though, making sure that people know that information is very, very important, Megan.
Mayor Miles Harris talking to the people out there. One with the people.
Champion.
People's champion, Miles Harris. Let's keep going. Oh, I'm just kidding. Miles, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Stop it. Thank you, Megan. I appreciate it.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, but keep it right here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back to Live Impact News right here on WCNC Plus. You know, we've been going back and forth, obviously, from Election Day to the Iran situation right now. So we are talking to a professor from Catawba College, Michael Bitzer. He's a guy that we go to a lot for these political discussions. And we really wanted to talk to him about, what this primary will mean, especially at the polls because of the Iran situation. We know a lot of Republicans and Democrats are split on the military action there. So let's take a listen in to see what he has to say.
8:48 now here on WCNC Plus, and earlier this hour we heard from members of the Trump administration with the latest on those ongoing strikes against Iran.
Well, many people, many lawmakers divided on the president's actions over the weekend. Take a look here in North Carolina. A new Catawba College YouGov poll shows 63% of Republicans support U.S. military action in Iran, while 68% of Democrats do not support military action, almost a total inverse there. Joining us now to talk about it, Catawba College political professor Michael Bitzer. We do want to talk to you about the primary day tomorrow, but put on your statistician hat first. What is your reaction to this poll? We should say it was taken in January, I believe, but it does give us a sense for how our neighbors feel about this conflict.
It certainly does, and we asked in January. At the time, there were massive demonstrations against the Iranian regime, and we asked about military strikes to support those particular protests. And overall, North Carolinians were against it, but it was fairly close in terms of the margin of error. But that partisan divide that you pointed out is kind of a classic dynamic that we are seeing play out nationally and here in North Carolina. And if you asked somebody who was an independent, not a partisan on initial identification, 50% of them were against it. So we're going to go into the field next week for our March survey to ask the same question again, now that we actually have military operations in the Middle East, and see what changes in terms of the dynamics.
It will be interesting to see those results, especially given the events over the past weekend. All right, so let's switch gears now and talk about the primary. Of course, the early voting ended over the weekend. Tomorrow is the actual primary. What are your thoughts on this? Of course, it outperformed early voting in 2022, even 2024 in the presidential primary. What are you thinking about this year's primary?
This one's off the charts, and so we're going to really have to wait and see who shows up tomorrow for Election Day. But if these are any indicators, if you look within the total numbers, it was a real reversal of what we thought would be happening. We all believe that the more competitive U.S. Senate contest for the nomination was on the Republican side. We thought it was basically going to be a coronation of Roy Cooper on the Democratic side. That script has basically flipped, and there were much more Democratic ballots taken during the early voting period than Republicans, and also unaffiliateds who tend to migrate towards the more competitive primary actually pulled more Democratic primary ballots than Republican. So this may be an early indication of what we're seeing in terms of energy and enthusiasm on the Democratic side. Again, we've got to wait and see what the dynamics are like for tomorrow's vote, but these are very impressive numbers coming in terms of early ballots cast.
Can you glean something from that, or can that be explained? We've talked about in the past that blue wave that happens on election night, and it's all the early voters that voted early and they say we're Democrat, and then that changes everything. I mean, can you attribute some of that to just like sort of party preferences of whether you early vote or not?
Well, this we have to remember, this is a primary election, so we're really dealing with two discrete battles going on. When you try to compare the two, there's a little bit of hesitancy in terms of extrapolating to the general election, but I look at these numbers and say, you know what, there is something going on with energy and enthusiasm on the Democratic side, at least here in North Carolina, and if that translates over the next 9 months, if that leads into November, then I think we can see the confirmation of what we are seeing in other dynamics, particularly special elections, Democrats overperforming, Republicans not performing as well. Now, here in North Carolina, Republicans have a built-in advantage when it comes to general elections, so Democrats have ground that they must make up in order to be competitive, but Roy Cooper has unlocked that box here in North Carolina to win as many times in Republican federal elections to be able to win as governor, for example. So I think this is going to be the real, kind of talk over the next 9 months after we get past Tuesday.
So you talked about the Senate race, of course, that's the big one that many people are looking at. Does Roy Cooper just glide through? Is this just another win for him that he checks off easily?
I don't want to make any predictions, but it feels like, certainly there haven't been the kind of candidates that would put up the challenge. They need name recognition. They need name ID across the state. They need funds and money to advertise. I haven't seen any of that kind of dynamic in any of the other Democratic candidates against Roy Cooper. So my expectation is that he will have a very good evening come tomorrow night. We'll just have to wait and see what the percentage is in terms of his vote gains.
Rarely, if ever, do you ever have a state Senate seat that is more exciting than a U.S. Senate seat. But you might just have one. And it's not a Charlotte race for our viewers, so you'd be forgiven if you don't know about it. But instead, it involves the Senate Majority Leader, Phil Berger, arguably the most powerful person in the state of North Carolina. And he is facing up what is a very significant challenger.
Very much so. In Rockingham County, where Phil Berger is based out of, that county's sheriff, Sam Page, is challenging Senator Berger. This is really a grudge match between these two gentlemen, and local politics is so dominant in this that all of us are basically going to be sitting on our couches, eating our popcorn and hitting refresh on that particular primary dynamic. A lot of this is based in Rockingham County, but the wild card is in Guilford County. Part of that district is in Guilford. And actually, there are more voters in Guilford than in Rockingham County in total. But we're seeing Rockingham County in the early votes well outperform Guilford. So this kind of dynamic is something that we're going to watch. This is indeed the most powerful Republican, as you noted, in the state for the past 15 years. This is a real challenge to see if he can hold on to power or if we have a new day in North Carolina politics.
And if he loses, what does that say about the state of politics here in North Carolina? And then what happens in Raleigh? I mean, he has an entire infrastructure there that operates under him.
It does, and I think the big question will be who is going to start jockeying for to be the next president pro tem, to be the leader of the state Senate for Republicans. I think that's going to be a very fascinating contest to kind of watch, and it could also have a play in terms of the dynamics of our state budget. Reminder: we don't have a new state budget; we're operating under the old one, and it's been at loggerheads between the House and the Senate in terms of the leadership priorities. If Phil Berger was to lose, does that change that dynamic and we get a new state budget where new leaders come to agreement over? We'll just have to kind of wait and see. There's still several months to see this play out if he were to lose, but right now no bets in terms of who's going to win between Berger and Page.
What else are you looking for tomorrow? What else has piqued your interest in this primary?
Well, I think certainly in Mecklenburg, the Cunningham race is going to be one to watch. That could be, the Democratic Party's version of what is going on with Berger and Page. I think there are a couple other, particularly congressional races across the state. The first, with its Republican primary, that is a lean Republican district now that it's been redistricted, but we'll have to watch and see what the national dynamics play out. And then in the fourth congressional congressional district around Durham and the Triangle, there's a real competitive, what looks like Democratic primary going on there against an incumbent, against a progressive on that regard. The other one is out in the western part, the Democratic primary for the North Carolina 11th. The DCCC has thrown its support behind one of the candidates. We'll see if he can pull that off as well. So it's going to be a busy night yet again in North Carolina elections.
Always exciting. And to that point, in some of these races, because you've alluded to it before, we have sort of self-segregated ourselves and our communities as far as political ideas and things like that. In some of these races that you just mentioned, whoever wins the primary is more likely going to go straight ahead and win the general election because these districts are so heavily slanted, either Republican or Democrat.
Exactly. I mean, we are basically having the general election for a significant majority of all of these contests tomorrow. And because of the self-segregation, and then layer on top of that the lines that have been drawn, basically the true general election contest is during the primary contest. So many of these state legislative districts, so many of the congressional districts, the winner is going to be determined when we know the election results tomorrow night as opposed to November.
You can't underscore the importance of the primary enough.
Yes.
Like, oh, I'm just going to wait till the midterms. I'm going to wait till November. So much of that is determined in those primaries.
If you wait, you miss all the action.
Lose out.
You
Exactly.
lose out. All right. Professor Bitzer, as always, we appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
We're going to be talking to him as well on Wednesday morning, the morning after.
All right, you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We're going to take a quick break, but keep it right here on Live Impact News. You're watching Live Impact News right here on WCNC Plus. We are going to head over to Washington, D.C. right now, where Democrats are speaking about the situation in Iran before the briefing today. So let's take a listen in.
Cost relief at home. Instead of shifting rationales for war, we need a clear strategy for affordability. That's what Americans are asking for. That's what Senate Democrats are fighting for. Senator Murray.
Well, Donald Trump promised lower costs and no more foreign wars. Instead, he has given us higher costs and a new costly war in the Middle East. It is hard to imagine a more straightforward betrayal. This president sent our kids into a war of choice from his beach club in Florida without clear objectives or any sense of an end game, and without any authorization from Congress, no debate, no public hearings, no justification to the American people. My thoughts go out to the families of the service members who have already been killed in Trump's war. What Americans want is health care. They want to pay less at the grocery store and the gas station. They do not want to spend billions in taxpayer dollars to bomb Iran in a war that already tragically resulted in the deaths of American service members. Congress should end this war now. Republicans should grow a spine and vote with Democrats in support of the War Powers Resolution. But instead, some Republicans are now trying to use Trump's reckless war of choice in Iran as a new pretext to completely ignore Donald Trump's reckless occupation of American cities with rogue ICE agents. Look, I'm not going to vote to fund ICE and let them detain, brutalize, shoot, or kill more American citizens just because Donald Trump started an unconstitutional war that no one asked for. And let's be clear, when it does come to national security, the Pentagon, CIA, law enforcement, the FBI, and other key agencies are already funded. And if Republicans want to know who is actually undermining our cyber defenses and our counterterrorism work, all they have to do is look across town at Kristi Noem's DHS and Kash Patel's FBI. How many key personnel has Trump already fired for no reason at our top cyber defense agency? How many FBI agents are focused on helping round up farm workers with no criminal history instead of counterterrorism? Why did Patel just last week fire members of the FBI's counterintelligence squad? And why on earth was a 22-year-old hired to lead counterterrorism at DHS? That should be a bigger concern to Republicans than a simple demand that ICE follow the same standards as local police. And I'll close with this. War should be a last resort. I voted against the war in Iraq, and even the Bush administration was not as cavalier as Trump about the...
All right, listening in to Democrats there before that Iran briefing. But we are going to bring it back to some news that we brought you earlier this morning. So Silfab Solar, that is down in Fort Mill. There were hazmat crews there. York County Emergency Management said approximately 1,530 gallons of potassium hydroxide was released. Now, the agency says that most of those gallons were contained by Silfab's retention pool, and emergency responders were called to the facility and are collecting the remaining 30 gallons of potassium hydroxide. So we did get a statement, though, I do want to say this, from Silfab, and they tell us that the 300 gallons of water was diluted to a level of 0.03 potassium hydroxide right in Fort Mill. Okay. There's a lot of confusion. A lot of people are wondering what this is. To answer those questions, we are bringing in Susan Richardson. She is with the University of South Carolina, and she is a chemistry and biochemistry professor there. So, Professor, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Happy to help.
All right. Okay. So, Professor, we've been getting a lot of calls, a lot of questions on basically what this compound is, what it does, and if it can be harmful. Can you talk to us a little bit about what it is?
Yeah, so potassium hydroxide, also known as KOH, is a base. It could be a very strong base, and the amount that you're talking about, the 0.03%, is very high. That might sound like not high percent, but that would make that to be very caustic. It would be between pH 11 and 12 probably, And so we don't often think about bases, strong bases, but we think about strong acids and think about if you've got, you spilled some battery acid on your skin or something like that. This would do the same thing, even though it's a base, it's at the other end of the pH spectrum. It does essentially the same kinds of things that a strong acid would do. So high pH instead of low pH, but you burn your skin. If a lot of this got out into the river, then it could kill a lot of fish. Pretty much all aquatic life, would be killed in a matter of minutes with this high pH. So very dangerous for people, dangerous for the, the fish and the other things in the river.
Right, because seeing the 0.03, you're thinking, wow, that's not allowed, but I mean, it just depends on what the compound is, right? So they said that it was retained and they are cleaning it up. Does the community have any issue? They said there was no impact to the community, but is there anything that they should be doing to keep themselves safe? Is there anything airborne that can happen with this stuff, or just seeping into, the ground itself? Can that be harmful?
Yes, sometimes you can get aerosols coming off of those things, and whether it's a strong acid or a strong base. So I would not want to be walking around anywhere near that spill. There could be some fumes that come off of it. I hope that they are neutralizing it. You can neutralize it with different chemicals, and you can neutralize a base with an acid or other kinds of things. And I hope that's what they're doing, so that it's neutralized, it's not getting airborne or, leaking into nearby waterways.
What do we usually see this compound in? Is it in anything that we use everyday products for?
Oh, goodness. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, I can think of a number of things that acid might be in, but base, maybe some deep cleaning chemicals. So let me just say KOH is not, but I'm thinking of another base is ammonia. Ammonia is another base. And if it were in high enough concentrations, it would behave very similarly to potassium hydroxide. So you think about concentrated ammonia. If you had really ultra concentrated ammonia for cleaning, that potassium hydroxide would be a little bit similar to that.
Okay, awesome. And does it take a while to clean this up, or what does that cleaning process look like, would you say?
If they're neutralizing it with an acid or something else, that can just take seconds to minutes, depending on, the volume. It did sound like a huge volume, but it's relatively quick as soon as that's mixed in equal amounts, then it can become pH 7 and be fine.
Is there anything that, maybe people living nearby or really close to that area? I know that there is a school like a mile away. Is there something that they should be looking for in case they do start feeling bad or anything? What are some of the signs, symptoms that they need to watch out for?
Yeah, I would say, if there's any danger of that stuff getting aerosolized or transferred, you would probably, your eyes would be burning, your throat would be burning probably. If you smell something off and you feel like something's not right, breathing, I would stay away from that area. But like I said, it could be that they've already got it completely neutralized, because it is, once you get it neutralized, it's pretty fast in controlling it. But I wouldn't want to be walking anywhere near that place until it is neutralized.
Great, perfect. Thank you so much, Professor Richardson, for answering these questions for us. I know a lot of people had a lot of questions about this, so we really, really appreciate you.
You're so welcome. I hope it really is cleaned up soon.
Yes, definitely. All right. Thank you so much. And we're going to take a quick break right here on Live Impact News, but keep it right here on WCNC Plus. You're watching live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Thanks so much for staying with us. I'm Megan Bragg. We're going to take a look at your weather right now, as it has been really dreary lately. We're expected to see some sunshine and some warm up. So let's take a listen to Majestic Storm.
Only one more day of cloudy conditions, cooler temperatures, and even a few stray showers outside. And then by tomorrow, finally, that sunshine returns and temperatures continue to climb back into the 70s. Very dreary outside today, though, as we're heading into the afternoon. Temperatures only really rising into the mid to upper 50s today. By tomorrow, though, I think we could wake up to a little cloud coverage early in the day, mixed in with some fog as well. And then by the afternoon, that sunshine starts to come out. 70s returning for our forecast tomorrow, and then we are talking about a heat wave with multiple days in a row with 80-degree temperatures. Yesterday we topped off at 62 degrees. Today we are forecasting 58. Again, mainly cloudy skies, and could we have a few stray sprinkles out there as we're heading into the afternoon and even early into the evening? I think we could, but honestly, I would say if you're heading out to vote, don't even bother bringing your umbrella. It won't be that big of a deal. Cloudy conditions throughout the rest of our afternoon with daytime highs, again, rising only into the 50s today. Here's our futurecast. Let's get you through the rest of the day today. Let's pause time. Here's about 4 o'clock. Those temperatures into the 50s, still socked in with a whole lot of cloud coverage across the Queen City. Now, we could have a little sunshine breakthrough up in the high country, but look at what happens overnight tonight and into tomorrow. Here's 7 o'clock. Temperatures will mainly be into the 40s. I think we will have a little cloud coverage early in the day, but then there we go. That's what I'm looking forward to. Wednesday afternoon, early evening, I'm talking about 5 o'clock, low 70-degree temperatures. It's going to be not only gorgeous, but also very comfortable to get outside. Maybe go grab dinner outside, go for a late evening walk. You can see by Thursday, 7 o'clock in the morning again, we're basically doing it all over. However, those temperatures will be even warmer. 3-day forecast looks like this. 58 degrees today, cloudy skies. Tomorrow, 77 degrees. Sounds pretty nice. And then it gets even hotter than that. 80 degrees for our March 5th. Each day we will have plenty of sunshine. Rain chances will drop for a few days, but then this upcoming weekend and then into next week, those rain chances slowly start to increase. But truthfully, this is the big weather story, going from 58 degrees today for our high back into the upper 70s and low 80s. Even next week, 85 degrees on Tuesday, 84 on Wednesday, and then we start to see those temperatures drop back down. So while you're outside, whether you're at the golf course playing some pickleball or just going for a long walk in those 80-degree temperatures, that's typically where we would be on May 14th. So it's going to feel much more May-like than it is March-like. Overall, rain chances are low until next week, and we're really going to be watching next week because it seems like there's a potential of not just those above average temperatures, but possibly some storms and rain showers to push through late next week. So make sure you're just staying close to our weather team. Again, the big focus right now will be one more gloomy day today. You can see it here in our Jerry Hunt Super Center 7-day forecast. Low temperatures tonight, 47 degrees, so not all that bad waking up tomorrow. 77 though, that is going to feel so nice for our daytime high. Thursday and Friday, low 80-degree temperatures, and then this upcoming weekend, we're going to stay very warm, upper 70s and low 80s there as well. Small rain chances, and don't forget, we're springing forward. We want more daylight. I know you're looking forward to that sunshine and those warm temperatures as well, so I hope you find some time to get out and enjoy it. Hope you have a great day.
Good afternoon, everyone. Colin Mayfield here. We've got some breaking developments in a live report from the Volusia County Sheriff's Office down in Florida after a deputy was shot. Let's go to this live right now.
Down the driveway, yelling, shots fired, shots fired. You can see he's bleeding from his arm. Tourniquet for his leg. So after he shoots, he goes back into the house. He eventually comes out, and we take him into custody. He actually tries to enter, I don't know if you can see the car. There's a white car in the driveway. He goes back in the house, comes out, tries to get in the car, meanders around there, and eventually he decides he's going to give up. He was alone in the house at the time of the incident. The two people that we took into custody, they were living in the shed behind the property paying him rent. These are the two people coming out of the shed. There's a male husband and wife. They had no involvement or anything to witness or anything that had happened. They just rent that shed from our suspect and his mother. That's the white car that he tried to get in and out of. That gun is a 9mm. It was purchased by someone in Sanford legally. We're trying to figure out how he got his hands on that weapon. He was involved in an incident in July 4th in Sanford where he pointed the gun at somebody. The description of that firearm damn right matches what happened in Sanford on July 4th. It's a conic 9mm firearm. So where we weren't last night, where we can update you now, is he fires 12 shots at the deputies. We don't know whether or not we're going to be able to recover Deputy Rivera's body camera footage. It went out to Axon. We just spoke to them and their forensic people. We're going to see what they can do. But the trail of shells from the front door to where you see Deputy Rivera leaning on the car would indicate he fired at him and followed him down that driveway and followed deputies down the driveway. What we discovered early this morning and last night is our defendant was on an AI platform in Spanish on February 14th, and he asked AI, "Can I kill someone if they visit my property?" AI then gave it a definition of stand your ground and Florida law and kind of advised that this isn't really a good thing to do. So once he was in custody and read his rights, he decided he was going to cooperate. And he gave a pretty interesting statement. And some of the things you hear in this statement kind of mirrors the statement from the shooter of Officer Jewell, if you think back. He starts off with saying he had a horrible day and starts to talk about that first confrontation with the woman at 5 a.m. where he talks about he was armed during that confrontation. When the deputies came up to the house, he had every intention to shoot them in their vest. And if I didn't run out of ammunition, I would have killed them all. And if you're going to ask me about my medication, I don't like taking my medication. So that's where we are. I'll give you an update on Deputy Rivera. We all went up to see him today at different parts of the day. When I got there, he was eating chicken and waffles and watching SpongeBob. Tell me that's not typical of a father of three. So we anticipate he's going to get released tomorrow, and we're going to try to do some special things for him and his family when he gets released. We'll let you guys know what we're going to do, and eventually there'll be a procession to get him home. I know he's anxious to get back to work. He asked me, he said, please, Sheriff, when I come back to work, do not send me to the communication center, whatever you do. Can I do something that's at least the folks will say I'm doing a great job or I'm doing something to help somebody out? We've been in contact with all our deputies. I think the easy part's going to be the physical wounds. They're going to heal. But all of us on the command staff have been in touch with every one of those deputies that were out there. Who's applying tourniquets, who was first aid, who loaded them in the car to go, Air One crew. Everybody is having a hard time with this. And that's what our job is. Our job is to get them over the hump. And I'm going to say this, and you can bleep me or do whatever, I really don't care. But there's a lot of scumbags out there that got a lot of things to say, okay? What they did, what those deputies did was absolutely outstanding. It was bravery. There was restraint involved. They did everything you could ever ask a law enforcement professional to do. And one thing they did not know or anticipate was a vandalism call, knocking on the door, which they have the legal right to do, would end up in a barrage of gunfire. And I don't care how much training I give you, I don't care how much equipment I give you, sometimes that angel on your shoulder is the reason that you survive. And that young man last night had an angel on his shoulder. Because you think of that. That body camera shot was coming to the chest. And whether you have a bulletproof vest on or not, sometimes that hits that vest, it goes through the vest, the vest can direct that bullet up into your neck, up into your shoulder, into your artery. Just wearing a vest doesn't mean I'm going to be safe. It's not a bulletproof vest, it's a bullet-resistant vest. That's what's important. There's no doubt that that body camera, worn where it was, stopped a shot to the chest, and clearly it directed it through his shoulder. And I'm not a doctor, but you saw that blood. It came pretty damn close to his femoral artery on top of that. And those deputies didn't wait. There was no lollygagging or vacillating around, oh, let's wait for evac or let's wait for the helicopter. Hey, there's a hospital, less than a half a mile away. Get him in that car and get him to the hospital. And they did that. They did that. And they held the scene, they took him into custody, and they did what they needed to do. So, you guys got any questions?
So, the two people in the shed, did they end up getting released?
They were released. They had no idea what was going on. In the very beginning, when the deputies are walking up and they're asking for him, they confer in Spanish and say he's probably inside the house. We don't know anything. Then they go back into the shed, and then all hell breaks loose from there.
And then just a quick question about the body cam. So I understood that the partner, he had ran around the house, but he did witness. So he first witnessed the shot.
That's his body camera.
Yeah.
That's his body camera catching that. Now remember, they're in the doorway, and if you look at that, we'll play the video again. There's nowhere to go. There's no trees. There's no nothing. The only cover you have is those three cars in the driveway. The bad guy's white car, then there was a red car, and then there was another car. Directly behind them is a park. There's a fence there. So there is no hard cover once he comes out of that door. And he's got the drop on them. I mean, you saw that in the video. Their guns aren't out. They're not going to know, hey, come here for a minute, buddy, I want to talk to you. It's a vandalism call, for Christ's sake. And they're greeted with, gunfire. And obviously, he sits there and tells us what a horrible day he had, and that if he had not run out of ammunition, he would have killed every one of those deputies. He did have more ammunition. He fired at 12. He dropped the clip. And from the crime scene, it looks like he went in, reloaded, must have thought better about it, came out without the gun, tried to get in the car and tried to leave, and then they were able to take him into custody.
So he bought that gun from someone?
He claims he bought the gun off of some whoever for $600 on the streets of Sanford. So obviously, we're working with ATF to go to the original purchaser and find out, hey, we know where your gun is. How the hell did it get in this guy's hands?
Did he get in trouble?
Absolutely. If he's illegal sale or transfer a gun. It's not reported stolen. So we'll look to tag him. Hopefully the feds will pick that up.
Suspect even allowed to have a gun?
I would say, based on his mental, no. the family should know that. But then again, his mother has been a victim of him beating her, and so has his sister.
Was this one long barrage, or was it?
It was one long barrage. It was 12 rounds. And like I said, the trail starts, there's a couple in the doorway, and then the trail goes off. I guess if you were looking at the property, it would be to the right where the cars were. The trail goes almost down to where Deputy Rivera, when you see him leaning on that car.
How many shots did Deputy Rivera get?
6. Retreating, he got 6 off. He wasn't able to stand his ground. He was retreating, firing back.
This trainee, have you talked to him at all?
Yeah, we've talked to him. 8 days. What do you think he's saying? I mean, you know, he's there. The most important thing for him was do my duty, talk to FDLE, make my statement, and then I want to get to the hospital and meet my partner. That was the most important thing to him.
I think in the body cam, one thing that is remarkable is how calm they were as all of this is happening. What do you say about that?
That's what I'm so proud of him. And I mean, the chief watched the video. We've all watched this video multiple times, and what comes through is that. What comes through is the training, because, you know, all hell's breaking loose, right? And you got to make a split-second decision. Do I throw in there? You know, the guy's still armed. The guy's still active on the scene. Do I take time to put a tourniquet on? Throw him in the back of the car. What do we do to get him the hell out of here? Now, what do we do to secure the scene, make sure this guy doesn't get away? Is he coming back out again? Where did he go? What other kinds of ammunition, what kind of rounds does he have coming at us? You know, so no, you don't know all these things in a matter of minutes. You have to make all of these decisions. And we're proud of every single thing that they did. Their decision-making, they were calm under fire. They did everything they needed to do.
At what point did the suspect look at AI or look at
February 14th. Oh. February 14th, he makes that inquiry in Spanish to AI about, the exact words, can I kill someone if they visit my property, is what he asks. And then AI gives the response of, that's really not a good idea. Here's what stand your ground means. Here's what the law, you know, what federal law is and what Florida law is.
Sheriff, I'm sorry if you touched on this last night, but did these deputies have any knowledge, I guess, before showing up to this house about this guy's history?
Only knowledge they had was that the mom told them he's bipolar, schizophrenic, and when he doesn't take his meds, he's violent. That's what they had. They didn't have any information about a gun. They didn't have any, some of that information I gave you last night, they weren't privy to that. We were privy to it because after it happened, then you're able to go back and call these records and find those things out. But that's what they had, and they did. They radioed in ahead. They called in and said, hey, we're going to a house. We're going to probably need some more units to show up. And they did. There were detailed deputies in the area, Deputy Dang and Deputy Hernandez, I think. They had just happened to hear it. They were close by. They were there pulling up. 2 of the other deputies were in the shift. They were the female officer, female deputy there, Deputy Kim Puglisi. She was pulling up. They had all arrived there. They were already up at the front door when the other deputies were arriving. And I don't think it really would have mattered. In his mind, he was going to do exactly what he did. And he knew from February 14th, because he's already had encounters with law enforcement before in Lake Marion and Sanford, where they've come to his house. On the 4th of July, they were knocking on his door to investigate the gun issue, which, again, we all believe when you read the description of the gun on the July 4th incident and the gun that he uses last night, it's the same gun.
Guys, we're going to cut into this. The Israeli ambassador to the United States is speaking at the UN in New York. Let's go to this, taking questions from reporters at this moment.
Very seriously. And I think President Trump took the right decision, not taking any chances and not getting to the point of no return. Because let's talk about North Korea for a moment. Very similar process happened. IAEA, inspectors, and one morning we woke up and they declared that they have nuclear capability. President Trump decided, and we should admire his decision, not to allow Iran to become North Korea. To announce one morning, that's it. We have nuclear capabilities and we can assemble it on ballistic missiles. And I think he knew the time is of an essence and he took the right decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, that was a quick session here. Of course, we'll have more for you tonight during our 7 to 9 hour. A lot of that will be filled with the election, but we will recap some of what just happened for you in a couple of moments. We'll see you in about 2 minutes. Welcome back. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is speaking right now. Let's go to this.
It all starts by knowing that where you are and how we can get a hold of you. So I'm asking the networks and all of the media outlets, please publicize the 2 phone numbers that we've put out, as well as the website, so people can contact us and register. We've had, thousands of people call already. As I said, we've identified almost 1,600 that are requesting assistance with departure, but we need you to please be able to identify that. As I came in, I also saw the media reports about Dubai's consulate. The last update I had with seconds before getting before these cameras was that a drone unfortunately struck a parking lot adjacent to the Chancellery building and then set off a fire in that place. All personnel are accounted for. As you're aware, we began drawing down personnel from our diplomatic facilities in advance of this. In the cases, for example, of Beirut, we basically drew down to bare bones. What I had with seconds before getting before these cameras was that a drone unfortunately struck a parking lot adjacent to the Chancellery building and then set off a fire in that place. All personnel are accounted for. As you're aware, we began drawing down personnel from our diplomatic facilities in advance of this. In the cases, for example, of Beirut, we basically drew down to bare bones, as well as in Baghdad and Erbil and in a couple other posts as well. So we've been very fortunate, obviously, but our embassies and our diplomatic facilities are under direct attack from a terroristic regime. With an update, I will obviously refer you to the Department of War. Suffice it to say that our objectives remain as they've been identified from the beginning and by the President laid out clearly yesterday. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon, and we will now not allow Iran to hide behind the immunity of a massive short-term ballistic missile inventory or the ability to make them or launch them. And so CENTCOM, in a joint operations, is carrying out a systematic destruction of their missile belt, destruction of their launchers, and destruction of their ability to make these, as well as the destruction of their Navy. From what I've been told by the Department of War, everything is on or ahead of schedule and proceeding on these objectives. We have every confidence in the world that these objectives will be achieved. The last point I would make is, and I said this yesterday and I repeat, what's about to, you're about to see, we're going to unleash Chang on these people in the next few hours and days. You're going to really begin to perceive a change in the scope and in the intensity of these attacks as, frankly, the 2 most powerful air forces in the world take apart this terroristic regime and defang it and take away its ability to threaten its neighbors or hide behind a zone of immunity that allows them to develop their nuclear ambitions. This terroristic, radical, clerical-led regime cannot be ever allowed to have nuclear weapons. We saw what they were willing to do to their own people. They were willing to slaughter their own people in the streets. Imagine what they would do to us. Imagine what they would do to others. Under President Trump, that will never, ever happen. All right?
Yesterday you talked about Israel. Mr. Secretary.
Please, guys, I can't hear them all. Yes.
Yesterday, you told us that Israel was going to strike Iran, and that's why we needed to get involved. Today, the president said that Iran was going to get.
Yeah, your statement is false. So that's not what I was asked very specifically. Were you there yesterday?
Yes, I asked
okay. No, were you the one that? Because somebody asked me a question yesterday. Did we go in because of Israel? And I said, you were asking me that follow-up, and I said no. I told you this had to happen anyway. The president made a decision, and the decision he made was that Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ballistic missile program, that Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ability to conduct these attacks. That decision had been made. The president systematically made a decision to systematically destroy this terroristic capability that they had, and we carried that out. I was very clear in that answer. This was a question of timing, of why this had to happen as a joint operation, not the question of the intent. Once the president made a decision that negotiations were not going to work, that they were playing us on the negotiations, and that this was a threat that was untenable, the decision was made to strike them. That's what I said yesterday, and you guys need to play it. And if you're going to play these statements, you need to play the whole statement, not clip it to reach a narrative that you want to do, all right? Go ahead.
What do you make of the war powers resolution that we consider here?
I mean, Congress votes on those. They can if they want. There's mechanisms for it. We've complied with the War Powers Act, even though we believe it's unconstitutional, as has every other administration. Every other president has found the War Powers Act to be unconstitutional. Nonetheless, we notified Gang of Eight, which is an appropriate mechanism by which to notify Congress. We sent the notification within 48 hours, the way the law requires. I'm here today to have, I don't know, my 6th or 7th briefing before the entirety of the House and Senate, which is far more than I ever got from any administration in the time that I was here, certainly when I was a member of the Gang of Eight. And so we've over-complied with the law and what it requires. This is an action by the president to address a real threat, This is hostilities designed to eliminate a threat to the safety and the security of the United States and to our allies.
Was there a plan in place to evacuate Americans before the attack took place?
Well, that's the plan we're trying to carry out. The problem is, or the challenge we are facing, is airspace closures. If a country closes their airport, for example, in some cases the airports have been hit. So the airport in Kuwait was hit. So if an airport's been attacked or the airspace is closed, then we can have the planes lined up to go, but we can't get them to land because we don't have the permissions to land there. So that's the challenge, but rest assured, we are confident that we are going to be able to assist every American. As I told you right now, we have about a little over 1,500, maybe closer to 1,600 Americans requesting assistance, and we know that we're going to be able to help them. It's going to take a little time because we don't control the airspace closures. That said, there may be more people out there that need help. We need to know who you are. So please, I'm asking the media, publicize the phone numbers and the website because we need people to call in so we have their name, we have their contact information, we have their location and their request. So as these opportunities begin to open up, we can act very quickly to reach them and get them out of harm's way.
I want to just clarify what you said. Because you said...
There's nothing to clarify.
Well, but you said I would give them...
No, but you have to read, if you're going to read the whole statement.
But your quote is about, we knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that would precipitate an attack.
Yeah, I know, I understand. But listen, all right, let me understand.
And
but I had a very specific question from that gentleman, right?
The president said that...
Hold on one second. I asked the
Air Force Israelis.
Okay, but let me answer because this is my press conference.
Okay.
You asked me, I was asked a very specific question. So you guys can misrepresent it, but I was asked a very specific question yesterday. The bottom line is this. The president determined we were not going to get hit first. It's that simple, guys. We are not going to put Americans' troops in harm's way. If you tell the president of the United States that if we don't go first, we're going to have more people killed and more people injured, the president's going to go first. That's what he did. That's what the president will always do. He will always put the safety and security of our men and women in uniform and of all Americans before anything else. He's always going to do that, and that's what he did here. In addition to that, I would argue that this threat from Iran, they are hiding behind these missiles and hiding behind these drones. They wanted to reach a point where you couldn't touch them, and then they could do whatever the hell they wanted with their nuclear program. And there is no way in the world that this terroristic regime was going to get nuclear weapons, not under Donald Trump's watch.
So the U.S. attack has nothing to do with Israel. It has
Hold
nothing to do with
on.
Israel.
This operation, though, there's a general question of why the president gave the green light, and then there's a question of why did it have to happen this weekend? Are you saying it had to happen this weekend because of that Israeli action?
No, this weekend presented a unique opportunity to take joint action against this threat. And we wanted this to have maximum success. We want this operation to be successful at achieving its objectives. I'll repeat the objectives. The president laid them out yesterday. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. It cannot have, and therefore it cannot have the things it was hiding behind to have a nuclear weapons program. What are those things? Number one, we are going to destroy their missiles and their missile launchers. We are going to destroy their capability to make these missiles and these launchers, and we are going to destroy their Navy. Those are the objectives, and this weekend, acting at this time, gave us the highest probability of success in achieving those objectives, and as the Department of War will brief you, we are on or ahead of schedule to do that.
So the U.S. attack would have happened no matter what? The U.S. attack would have happened no matter what Israel is planning to do?
The House said Israel was going to act with or without...
The president had already made a decision to act on the timing. The president acted on the timing that gave us the highest chance of success. And that's what you're seeing play out right now. You're seeing it play out right now, and you'll see it in the days to come. We will systematically take apart their missile program. We will destroy their ability to sponsor terrorism, by the way. We will destroy their factories. We will destroy their Navy. Those objectives are going to be met. We're well on our way to meeting them. It will not be easy. There will be a price to pay for it, but that is a much lower price to pay than having a nuclear-armed Iran. I got to go brief these guys. Hold on. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
How heavily is the administration leaning into the 2001 aid and that justification of these strikes?
What now?
How heavily is the administration...
Well, that's not our notification to Congress. Our notification, listen, let me explain to you guys this in simple English, okay? Iran is run by lunatics, religious fanatic lunatics. They have an ambition to have nuclear weapons. They intend to develop those nuclear weapons behind a program of missiles and drones and terrorism that the world will not be able to touch them for fear of those things. And this is the weakest they've ever been. Now is the time to go after them. The president made the decision to go after them, take away their missiles, take away their Navy, take away their drones, take away their ability to make those things so that they can never have a nuclear weapon. That's why the president made this decision. It was the right decision, and the world will be a safer place when these radical clerics no longer have access to these weapons. You see how they're using them now. Imagine how they would use them a year from now if they had more of these. All right, I got time for one more. Yeah, go ahead.
Yesterday, several Democrats criticized what you said.
Yeah, of course they could have. The question is, several Democrats criticize. They're going to always criticize. We've been doing this for years, guys. They come out. I'll tell you right now, they're going to come out after the briefing and say, we didn't hear anything. We have more questions than answers. You mark my words. But we still do these briefings. Go ahead.
Sir, Mr. Secretary, their criticism was on the timeline. They said that Israel is dictating the timeline for the United States.
No, the president.
You know, several people on the right have also agreed with that. How would you respond to
that? Well, the United States made a decision. Under the President of the United States made a decision. This is intolerable. Iran cannot have these missiles, cannot have these drones, cannot threaten the world. The President said this is the weakest they've ever been. If we don't hit them now, a year from now, a year and a half from now, no one will be able to touch them, and they'll be able to do whatever they want. And he made a decision to go. And he made a decision to go in a joint operation because it gave us the highest chance of success, and he made the decision to go first because he concluded that we were not going to get hit first. We were not going to absorb a blow from them. We were going to go first. He was not going to run the risk that they could attack us before we could hit them, because in addition to costing lives, it would undermine the effectiveness of our operation. All right, guys, I got to go. Thank you.
Thank you. I have to be quick. Look, America, the American people do not want an endless war. The administration doesn't seem to know what it's doing. Every hour there's a different rationale as to why we're doing this. And America wants this president to pay attention to the problems at home, not the problems overseas, particularly when no one has any idea of what the real rationale is. It changes every hour.
Some interesting comments by both men, the Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Senator Schumer, who just said not too long ago that there will be a war powers vote from Congress tomorrow. I wonder how that will change things. We will see. We'll take a 2-minute break. We'll see you right after this. All right, thanks for joining us again here on WCNC Plus. We're going to go to the U.S. Capitol live, specifically to the House floor as they are debating. Let's listen in to get more from this information here.
New Jersey, Representative Keene for introducing this bill, and I urge my colleagues to vote in support of H.R. 5419. Thank you, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentlewoman reserves her time. Gentleman from Arkansas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to the lead sponsor of this bill, the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Keene.
Thank you. Gentleman is recognized for 3 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to speak in favor of my legislation, H.R. 5419, the Enhancing Administrative Reviews for Broadband Deployment Act. Even as our world increasingly relies on the internet to access daily needs, communities across the country still lack a reliable wireless connection, especially in the most rural and tribal communities. The process of obtaining permits to improve broadband and communications infrastructure in these areas is often duplicative, inconsistent between agencies, and can set a project back by years. Outdated bureaucratic processes, inefficiencies, and delays should not stand between American communities and access to a reliable internet connection. My legislation directs an interagency review of the procedures used by the Department of the Interior and the Department of Agriculture to process permitting requests for communications infrastructure. This will allow Congress to direct smart, targeted reforms to improve efficiency, timeliness, and to help accelerate access to the internet. For government to work at best and most responsibly, you must invite regular reevaluation of its procedures, judge what works and what doesn't, and implement processes and improvements so that the federal government can better serve American people into the future. This legislation does just that. H.R. 5419 ensures a coordinated interagency approach to making the government run more efficiently so that the federal government is an active participant in, not an obstacle to, bridging the digital divide. I appreciate the partnership of Chairman Westman and bipartisan colleagues as this bill passed through the House Natural Resources Committee earlier this month. I urge my colleagues to support this legislation, and I yield back.
Speaker, I have no further requests for time. I'm prepared to close and reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman is recognized. Gentleman reserves. You will close. The woman from Oregon is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I urge my colleagues to support this legislation, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlewoman yields back her time. Gentleman from Arkansas.
Mr. Speaker, H.R. 5419 is a bill that cuts red tape, streamlines approvals, and accelerates broadband access by addressing the permitting barriers that slow broadband development.
All right, guys, we're going to cut into this. We do want to go to this other situation that we have been following today where Senator Tillis has been threatening to block some nominations of some of the recent administration officials until he gets some questions answered from Kristi Noem in terms of some ICE inquiries that he wanted to learn more about. So let's listen into this exchange between him and Ms. Noem right now.
Chairman, Secretary Noem, thank you for being here. I'm really glad that a lot of my Republican colleagues talked about the disaster that Biden and Mayorkas, your predecessor, created. It was absurd. You heard the things from Senator Brett, people that came over here who themselves were traumatized by the very people who then come to this country and traumatize American citizens. You heard Senator Schmidt saying the same thing. A lot of us are very frustrated with the disaster that President Biden left behind and a failed DHS. It's why I'm angry, and it's why I've been critical of you, Secretary Noem, because we're missing an opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the reasons President Trump won a year and a half ago is because people were sick and tired of a Democratic administration's open border policy and allowing millions of people to come to this country, 1.7 million called gotaways. We don't even know where they are, but we know when you pay a premium to a cartel to get them into this country, they're bad people. Now, why have I been critical of Secretary Noem? Because I don't think we're focusing on, we have limited resources. ICE can't be everywhere at once. There's very few people in Capitol Hill that support law enforcement more than me, including the sworn ICE officers. In fact, I've just been told, fortunately, in about a week and a half, we're going to get a plaque on the wall over the Capitol, thanking the Capitol police officers and all the agencies that responded on January 6th. All those thugs have actually been pardoned, and yet we haven't thanked the Capitol police officers for their work here. So when I say I'm unapologetically pro-law enforcement, you can count in every single sworn officer in Homeland Security. So why am I disappointed with Secretary Noem? Because we're not going after enough people who did this damage at the expense of running numbers that Stephen Miller wants out of the White House. We just want numbers. We want 1,000 a day, 6,000 a day, 9,000 a day, because numbers matter, right? No, they don't matter. Quality matters, not quantity, quality. And what we've seen is a disaster. Under your leadership, Ms. Noem, a disaster. What we've seen is innocent people getting detained that turn out are American citizens. I could talk about the culture that's been created here with Stephen Miller aiding and abetting. I heard first reports that he was the one that said it was a domestic terrorist situation where 2 people lost their lives in Minneapolis. I've heard that report. Maybe you can refute it. I don't know that we'll have time for you to respond because I'm giving you a performance evaluation here. I'm not looking for a response. And I'm saying, Ms. Noem, that time after time after time I've been disappointed. But before I get back to looking at the vicious people that did this damage to these families, I want to talk a minute about FEMA. You have a policy right now that anything over $100,000 has to go through your desk for approval. I asked my staff, because I'm a management consultant, I don't try to do cheap shots in here, but the facts do not lie. This is your administration for FEMA response. This is President Trump's first administration. Which one would you like to have? If you're a state that has a $60 billion disaster, your biggest disaster in South Dakota that I can tell that when you were an elected official was about $500 million. So 1/100th of this single storm where thousands of people are hurting in North Carolina and you're just barely catching up. This is what competent FEMA leadership looks like. This is what incompetent FEMA leadership looks like. And people are hurting in western North Carolina from the most significant storm they've ever experienced. This is what we need more of. I'm convinced you can't do it. If you're requesting a review of $100,000 and up, then it begs the question, why? Why would you be involved in that? Why would that be a policy? And in a minute, I'll ask about some people that are involved, some special government employees. Why are they involved in it? Thank you.
Senator,
no.
That $100,000 only had to do.
I will hold the clock until I finish.
Okay.
The bottom line is I've done the analysis, and you can say whatever you want to. I've worked with a Democrat governor. I've worked with a Republican governor. I've worked with fiscal research. We have people contacting my office now to get the information to better understand the failure of this department. You failed at FEMA, and in fact, if I get to it, actually, why don't I cover this right now? The Homeland Security Act of 2002 expressly prohibits the Secretary of Homeland Security from restricting or diverting FEMA resources from the agency's mission. Based on your disaster response, the chart that I just showed you, I have reason to believe that you're violating the law, either knowingly or unknowingly. So I'll be asking and getting a submission to the record, submitting a question for the record, what the total amount of FEMA reimbursements are currently being held by DHS, awaiting for final approval. Held by DHS, awaiting for final approval for an agency that you should not be obstructing the disbursement on. I'm going to give you time to answer to it under penalty of perjury so that we can get it right. Now, going back to Minneapolis, why can't we just say we made a mistake? I will ask you one question, if you can just give me a quick response. Who does Tom Homan work for? You or the president?
The president.
Okay. Why is that? Because I believe the president recognized that you weren't getting it done in Minneapolis, and you're putting us further away from pointing to this. We're beginning to get the American people to think that deporting people is wrong. It's the exact opposite. The way you're going about deporting them is wrong. The fact that you can't admit to a mistake, which looks like under investigation, is going to prove that Ms. Good and Mr. Petty probably should not have been shot in the face and in the back. Law enforcement needs to learn from that. You don't protect them by not looking after the facts. Not only should the FBI be investigating it, but every single law enforcement agency in that jurisdiction should be invited to it. So our law enforcement officers do not have this pall cast upon them. One of the reasons why ICE officers are having threats, and damn the people that threaten ICE officers, because so many of them are doing a good job, is because you've cast a pall on them by acting like we should investigate things differently. Officer-involved shootings have a formula that we should go through every time. And we're not going through that formula. As a matter of fact, in Ms. Good's case, I think that they were even saying that maybe there wasn't even a need to do it in the DOJ. I hope that that's changed. But I'm telling you, it was a civil rights review. I saw your frown. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But originally, Blanche said there wouldn't be an investigation. Folks, law enforcement, we've got to have their back. We've got to make it clear when they make a mistake, then they get corrected for it. But you don't walk away from it, and you've done it too many times. Now, Secretary, I read your book last week. And honestly, some of the parts of it impressed me, but some of it distresses me. And I'll give you a good example of one that does. The passage where you talk about killing a dog that was 14 months old. I train dogs, all right? And you are a farmer. You should know better. You should know that if you're going out to a hunting lodge and you're putting pheasants out and you're putting dogs out, you don't take a puppy out there. A 14-month-old dog is basically a teenager in dog years. You decided to kill that dog because you had not invested the appropriate time in training, and then you have the audacity to go into a book and say it's a leadership lesson about tough choices. It's in your book. We could play it if we had time. At that same lunch hour, you killed a goat. And you killed the goat because you said it was behaving badly. You are a farmer. You don't castrate a goat. They behave badly. You should have probably done that before. But my point is, those are bad decisions made in the heat of the moment, not unlike what happened up in Minneapolis. I expect we're an exceptional nation. And one of the reasons we're exceptional is we expect exceptional leadership. And you've demonstrated anything but that in the time that I've seen you responding to the emergency in North Carolina and across the Southeast, and acknowledging when mistakes are made, and speaking too soon for the expedient of social media or whatever it is. I'll leave you with this, Ms. Nome. I'm expecting answers to Charlotte's Web. I requested it a month ago. That was one of the investigations in Charlotte, 20 minutes from where I live. All I asked for, if it had to be anonymized, was information so that I could determine if your hit rate is right. I want to find more of those people, and I want to detain fewer of the others. And Mr. Chair, in my remaining time, I have a lot to go. But I want to submit this letter from the Office of Inspector General that cites 10 different instances under Ms. Nome's leadership where they've been misled and not allowed to pursue investigations that they think are critically important. Does anybody have any idea how bad it has to be for the OIG in this agency to come out and do this publicly? That is stonewalling, that's a failure of leadership, and that is why I've called for your resignation. And if I don't get an answer to these questions, I don't want an applause. Please don't do that for me. If I don't get an answer to these questions, if I don't get an answer that you've had a month to respond to, and the remaining ones, as of today, I'll be informing leadership that I'm putting a hold on any en bloc nominations until I get a response. And in 2 weeks, if I don't get a response, I'm going to deny quorum and markup in as many committees as I can until I get a response.
So there will be more, as you heard from the senator from North Carolina. We'll continue to keep you updated on that back and forth exchange with Ms. Nome. We'll have more as well here on WCNC Plus in 2 minutes. Folks, we do have some breaking developments in the Middle East. Things continue to change hour by hour. And in fact, it looks like even CNN is having to shelter in place in Tel Aviv, Israel. We've seen potentially some strikes in Tel Aviv recently. So this is impacting individuals. Right now, I'm seeing this on CNN Live as they are, again, sheltering in place at whatever place that they're in. So this is continuing to evolve. And in fact, we just had information that the U.S. consulate in Dubai was hit from hit after a drone strike and was on fire. Seems like that fire has been put out now. Reuters is reporting that authorities have put down this limited fire in the vicinity of the U.S. consulate in Dubai due to this drone strike. No injuries were reported. That was from Dubai's media office. So, yes, again, a lot of these reports have been coming fast and furious from different agencies, different websites. Reuters is a very trusted site, so that's why we're using that, Associated Press as well. But again, as I was saying, going back to this, it seems like some emergency sirens are being heard in Tel Aviv in Israel, which is why CNN went to their rooftop location that they were at inside of the building that they are in. So not necessarily you have to turn it on. We'll continue to operate from here on WCNC Plus and let you know if anything changes, obviously, on another station. But we will go to the latest in the Corey Richins murder, now day 7. We have been following this very closely as well. This is the Utah mother of 3 who's accused of fatally poisoning her husband in 2022. Let's go to this live right now.
Legacy, that's why I call it Legacy Way. It's in Midway, that's why people call it the Midway Mansion. And then the parcel number, etc.
Then it says C addendum. We'll get to that one in a minute. But Scott, if you can scroll down. What information does the purchase price paragraph provide?
So it tells us what the agreed purchase, well, the offered purchase price is $2.9 million for this property. And then the accounting on the left shows that there's a $50,000 deposit, and then the balance will be paid at settlement, and then the purchase price there. And then I know that this is accepted because it's got initials on both and the dates on both, the buyer and seller.
Scott, can you just scroll down all the way through the next page? Keep scrolling. Keep scrolling. Keep scrolling. Let's stop there. Thank you. Let's zoom in on the contract deadlines through the signature. Yep. Thank you. Ms. Carrington, what information does this provide?
So this gives a chronology of different steps that need to be taken. It's very typical in every transaction, most transactions. Sellers have a duty to disclose any of the warts and problems with the house. Those are due by January 7th of 22. Due diligence means that's the opportunity for the seller, that's an opportunity for the potential buyer to do any homework, anything that they need to do as far as due diligence before they sign. That's due February 4th. Financing and appraisals, that's also for the buyer to arrange financing, funding, do any appraisals that they want to do, and they have until January 7th to do that. And the settlement deadline, that means this deal has to close by March 4th of 2022.
Does that March 4th date hold any significance in this case?
Yes, it does.
What's that?
That's the day that this property deal closed and Corey Richins purchased this house.
Did she purchase it on March 4th or March 5th?
I'm sorry, March 5th. March 4th is the date that Eric Richins died.
Thank you. Let's discuss the warts and problems, please. Scott, if we can go down to the, just keep it up, zoomed out, right there. Is that the addendum that was referred to earlier?
Yes, it is. Addendum 1.
Okay, I'm going to walk up and present you with a printed copy of 6-8. And this is the addendum, am I right, that discloses all the warts and problems?
Yes.
I've circled a few of the paragraphs on that disclosure, that addendum. Can you please read those paragraphs aloud to the jury?
Okay. Bear with me. This is paragraph 2. Buyer is to acknowledge and affirm and agrees that these parcels, parcel 1, parcel 2, are sold as is. Buyer acknowledges, affirms, and agrees that both building structures have extensive vandalism, theft, as well as flooring and other structural concerns that may need or will require replacement or repair. Due to delays in construction and the permitting/approval process, the structures have been idle, exposed to the elements, and are not habitable, and are also suitable in many ways for continued construction. Damage has occurred because of the idle status of the projects. Buyer affirms buyer's intent in moving forward with the building project or abandon the project altogether based on buyer's own investigation of said structures in their state of idleness, disrepair, unfinished, and uninhabitable quality. Additionally, animals may have taken up residence in the ventilation systems for which there may be additional damage. Buyer acknowledges and affirms that buyer accepts the property in its unfinished, disassembled, unrepaired, damaged state and agrees to confirm through buyer's own due diligence which repairs and remediation efforts are necessary. Buyer acknowledges and affirms buyer's own actual or potential costs of repair, remediation, demolition, remodel, restart, reconstruction, and or completion in moving forward with the building projects. Buyer agrees to purchase parcels, buildings, structures, and all.
All right, folks, not to cut this off right now, but we do have to get you to our WCNC Charlotte linear show at 4 o'clock. Don't forget, we will have more election coverage from 7 to 11 tonight here on WCNC Plus.